The Fix is in. The Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by GV Art and Design. It's not just a shirt, it's a statement. GVArtwork.com.
Sports Fix listeners, don't wait all day or all week to get in on the fun. The party doesn't stop when we go off the air all week long. The Sports Fix social media sites are your one-stop shop for all things Cleveland sports. Jump over to Facebook.com/TheSportsFix, Facebook.com/TheSportsFix, and become a fan today because we love fans and they create some of the best sports talk in town, Daddy. You'll enjoy talking to your fellow Cleveland sports fans on the Sports Fix fan page. And if Twitter's your thing, well, you know how we do it. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. It's that simple.
Twitter.com/TheSportsFixCLE, baby.
Chat live with the crew during all your favorite Cleveland sports events, tickets and contests and trivia and so much more. Get with us today, The Sports Fix on social media, Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. Join the Sports Fix on Facebook and Twitter today.
Hey Cleveland, this is Anderson Varejão of the Cleveland Cavaliers. You are listening to the Sports Fix.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
And away we go. I guess, man, voiceover done a few years ago. Man, we're not just live in Ohio. We're live everywhere. Radio voice guy that kicks off the Sports Fix. Welcome in, you guys. We are live, as he said, and we're running and rolling here. I tell you, I think I may have magically, in the ether here, in the last 30 minutes before the show, I think I changed the way I'm going to start today's show, man, because, I had a couple of things to talk about here that are, not the best ways to start the day here. And I'm like, I'll tell you, though, I got inspired in the last half an hour watching these insane videos. I'll tell you guys about it here in just a minute. But, we're going to talk about teams free-falling and having trouble climbing. How about the opposite? Some real climbing here. Allow me to indulge off the beaten path. It is sports. I'll tell you, all the time, I'm one of those guys that's amazed in the study of not just the human psyche, human psychology, but the physiological limits and pushing through them. I'm amazed and love to see when guys can go above and beyond. As if I can get the marbles out of my mouth to start things out, love to see guys that can just push, just to see how far you can take the human body, in whether it's going after a record in a sport, an endurance test, whatever. And I'll tell you, I've been sitting here this morning after I got ready for the show. I found one of those articles that initially was going to be something I talk about at the end of the show. You guys know I'm always looking for something a little bit different, a little bit out there to end the show when I can. But I started watching some of the videos that went with the story. I've been sitting here literally up until showtime, man, and then I'm scrambling trying to get everything off and on the air here. But I'll tell you what, man, for those of you guys that haven't had a chance to see it, I'll post the main story, and then you guys can go if you want to track down the Facebook posts and different journal blogs, video blogs that come with it. But these two guys out in Yosemite, California, a couple of rock climbers, Tommy Caldwell and Kevin Jorgensen. I gotta start off the show. Like I said, man, we've got enough bad places to go. I've already got callers in the queue. We're gonna get rolling here in just a minute. We got the BSK coming here. We've got Mike Brandyberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. A lot of good things to get into. But man, I gotta tell you guys, watching this thing, El Capitan is the name of a 3,000-foot straight drop wall. I mean, straight up and down wall down in Yosemite National Park. And these guys are climbers. These guys have tried this for years. This is one of those, undoable things, man. And there's all these video blogs that these guys captured along the way. What these guys finished after 19 days. they scaled from the bottom to the top in one continuous climb, and not a normal rock climbing type. They're not digging the holes with the chisels. There we go. I was trying to think of the technical term for it. They weren't getting themselves dug into space. They didn't have all the wiring and rigging set up. None of that stuff. This is straight free climbing. They've got videos of their hands just sliced up. They're pulling themselves up on razor thin levels of rock and planting their feet in little holes that are smaller than nickels and dimes. I mean, this is some hardcore, extreme sporting stuff, man. But it speaks to to how much you can endure. Yeah, man, in a much different way, like that story about the Conrad from the former Dolphins fullback and surviving all them hours in the water and swimming to shore and all of that. The limits that you push yourself to and then going beyond. But it wasn't just that these guys climbed this thing. That's, a lot of guys do amazing things like that. But man, the stuff that they went through to do it, I mean, which I can appreciate. I've told you guys, hey, I've got the back of my head split open, super glue that thing back together, and let's go back to work. I know that sounds crazy, but that's what these cats are out here doing to climb. They had to tape and glue and put their hands back together so they could keep climbing this thing. And then when they would fall, because it's not the setup like a normal rock climbing thing, these guys have like one trigger line holding them just to stop them from dying if they fall off of this thing. So when they slip, they go whipping around in the wind and just like crashing like waves up against the thing, up against the rocks there. Man, I'll tell you what. Anyways, hardcore, extremely hardcore stuff right there, man. But I said, you know what? If we're gonna be talking about free falling, let's talk about some guys making the climb first, man. I wanted to give these guys first mention at the start of this show. I mean, the White House tweeted them, President Obama, from the official White House Twitter account, man. Not that, anyways, I could go somewhere else with that. But wow. So I'll tell you, when guys say I can't, that old cliche, what is it that your parents used to tell you, or maybe your teachers or somebody used to tell you that if they didn't, they should have, that I can't actually means I won't. I'll tell you what, man, you hear stuff like this and you go, man, that's true, man, because anyways, these cats put some work in. 19 days continuous climb, and they were able to do it over 3,000 feet, something that even some of the most hardcore climbers said was absolutely impossible to do. And here these cats went out there and do it. So don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't do something. I mean, I'm not saying that means it can be easily done, but it can be done. But man, again, the story was all right and it was cool, but then when you go in and you see some of these self-captured videos that they took along the way, you go, wow, man, crazy. More power to you. I'm with you in the chat room, Charles. I love watching stories of guys pushing their limits and all of that. And I like pushing mine athletically, obviously. I like to see what level I can take something to. You always, that's part of working out and being in athletic endeavors and stuff like that. But then there's a reason that the term extreme is what it is. People have made extreme like a normal term. That's because it's way off the edge. And those cats, no pun intended, way off the edge. But man, I just wanted to mention that here. And it took years. I think it's been what did I see? 6 years of different attempts here at doing this thing before it didn't come off. And one of the guys that did it was missing. He was missing one of his fingers. It actually had nothing to do with climbing. He had an accident with a saw, but so he's like, hey man, look, I've had a saw cut the thing off before. I'm not even worried about some of these cuts and these different injuries. But yeah, cool stuff, man. And I said, you know what? Let's start with something inspirational, especially because, man, now I got to talk about the Cavs here in a minute. Let's start right there. Let's get rolling. Welcome into the Sports Fix. J-Rocc with you, off and running on another Thursday afternoon edition of the Sports Fix here. Doing the thing across the Sports Fix radio network. Thank you guys for being with us on TuneIn and TuneIn's radio app worldwide, on Spreaker and Mixler and their respective digital and mobile applications, and of course live on the sportsfix.net, the one-stop shop for all things Cleveland sports as well. Thanks to all of you guys who listen 24/7 on digital delay on iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on iTunes and Stitcher Radio and SoundCloud, CarPlay, all the different formats and places that you podcast, feed the show, subscribe to it, all of that. Once again, as always, thank you guys for being a part of the show, and be a part of the show. Hit up the phones, 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535, the number to call, or hit us up on social media, facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Again, Facebook, just search for The Sports Fix, or directly put it in there, facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us and follow us, as always, at The Sports Fix CLE. You can email us 24/7, thesportsfix@AOL.com. And as I said, from the joys of climbing to the top of a mountain and all of that to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I'm not going to go crazy with this. As a matter of fact, Eddie Jansen was going to join us today. I hit up Eddie. I said, listen, I want to see what they do tonight. Let's watch this Lakers game. Let's get back together tomorrow, you and I. And in between Lakers and Clippers, you and I will talk tomorrow and see. Because I didn't know what to come back with Eddie here today that we haven't already hit on and that hasn't changed. I mean, you guys have seen. You know, we took some calls yesterday. I remember the mayor jumping in. But you guys have seen some of the articles in the last 24 hours that have come out, and it is very easy. And I will gladly lead the train most of the time against the bad parts of the media, doing the same thing that I do in bad ways that lead people around by the nose. That being said, the two, and I'm not talking about all of these different articles, Slam Magazine, all these different, I don't want to say secondary is a good word, type of sites. And, you know, I've talked to you guys before. It's very easy. A lot of these places take a germ of something, turn a story, or they'll just, you know, fabricate some things and make them look like they're professional website stories. Anyways, a lot of ways that people fall for the phishing tricks out there on the internet. But even the bigger places, very good at trolling the fan base with just a grain of truth and then a lot of fluffer and garbage thrown in there. But two guys, and you know what? I'm not even going to say two guys, because Brian Windhorst is not my favorite guy at all. He's been on the LeBron James beat since he left, and he was on the Cavs beat. He's the ESPN guy. Not a big fan of him, but you know, he does more often than not. He's in the ballpark, but he is wrong as much as he's right. But Woj, man, Adrian Wojnarowski from Yahoo Sports, he's on it every time. He was the guy that was ahead of the curve, even with LeBron coming back to Cleveland. He's ahead of a lot of the stories. Now, he can get snarky, so he can definitely fall in my list at times of not my favorite reporters that are out there. But whatever, man. It's not about who you like and who you don't. It's about who's got some sources and some facts. And I got to tell you, Woj drops it 90% of the time. He's on it, man. Yeah, Woj bombs, man. Charles in the chat room. But he's right. When he drops it, there's a lot to it there. And he really spelled out. As a matter of fact, it was just around this time yesterday afternoon, right after we went off the air, he dropped his latest about the Cavs. And again, the narrative to be told is the same thing I'm going to say. And it's tonight against the Lakers is as good a time to start as any. But you have the opportunity to turn this around. There's no doubt the pieces, the talent there. You know, LeBron James says he's healthy and feeling better. Now, the Cavaliers have the opportunity to write the narrative for the rest of this season however they want, but you cannot continue to hide. And it's what these players are doing, man. Look, it's one thing to talk about you talk about LeBron and the leadership or how he leads or doesn't lead by example. Very much truth to that. I said it the other day, guys. It's as simple as just setting the tone. Even if you don't buy into what the guy is saying, when you pretend to buy in, everybody else falls into line, and then all of a sudden things work a lot better for the coach. I mean, LeBron James really does hold David Blatt's whatever in his hands. There's no doubt about that. That's the way a coach-star relationship works anyway, but here more than ever, because this franchise has put all of their eggs in the LeBron basket. And that can be fine. And well, everybody's worried LeBron's going to leave. That's the one person that I'm not worried about leaving. He knows why he came back here. He wants to run the show, man, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. And he's got everything he'll ever want right here. And it erases the biggest mistake that he made in his career, public relations wise. Not saying that the playing in Miami was a mistake, but you know what I'm saying. So LeBron's not going anywhere. You will fit into LeBron's version of the Cavs, or they will find somebody else who will fit into the Cavaliers. That's just the reality of that. And we talked about yesterday people going crazy, the push and taking it out of context and all that. The fact that LeBron felt comfortable enough to do it does definitely prove all you need to know about his perhaps one-on-one respect level for the coach. That being said, obviously taking it out of context is what a lot of people do, but it goes way beyond that. I'm telling you, for guys like Woj, and I'll even say Windhorst, but he's definitely been wrong more times than Woj. When a guy is putting blatant accusations of telling players on the other teams, and I don't know, I truly wish that I had firsthand knowledge of this stuff myself, to be totally honest with you. But, reports of speaking to players out of school, basically, would be the way to say it, about wanting to have your coach fired, about trying to play poorly to force the organization to make a move. That's Bush League stuff right there. That's stuff that cannot be ignored and swept under the rug. And I'm telling you, for all the talk about a vote of confidence, I believe, I said it last week, you guys, with David Griffin, with what he was saying, that speech that he gave was not for the fans, was not for the media. It wasn't even for David Blatt. That speech that David Griffin gave last Sunday, that was for LeBron, that was for Kyrie Irving, that was for Kevin Love, that was for the Cavs. That was his attempt. Now, here's where he'll find out how much power he really does or doesn't have, because he drew his line in the sand, did David Griffin, when he called his guys out without doing it. That's what he did. He made it very clear that this is the path that we're going, and you guys are not going to force things to change. And really think about this. Let's stop everything, whether you like LeBron, don't like him, Kevin Love, Kyrie, all of that. What's the one thing that most of you say, whether you thought this team was going to be great, whether you thought they were going to be good, whether you thought they were going to be whatever? What is the one thing most people say as you watch this season go? Well, I knew they weren't going to be great, or I knew they weren't going to be champions right away, but I'm amazed that this group could look this bad with that level of talent. Now, we're not talking about just wins and losses, just looking so discombobulated at times. It's almost, and I'm not saying this, but you would think somebody was doing it on purpose, because it's not possible for it to come together as badly as it has. But you're thinking, well, obviously that's not what's happening. But then you hear reports of this and you go, man, wait a minute, man, what in the world is going on? The fact that those words can even be said and it not addressed, that those stories can even come out. And again, I get the fact of if it's total garbage, then you ignore it and you move on. But I'm looking directly at Woj, man. When he comes out with he's very careful about, obviously, that's how you get the reputation for being on the money, when you report things most of the time. And I'm not saying rely on this guy or that guy or this guy as Bible, but I'm saying there's a reason that guys have better reputations than others. When these reports are coming from those circles, direct comments coming from Cavs players about trying to get their coach ran out of the job so that they can, and you know what, it fits right into what I've kind of felt all along, that these Cavs have been playing like there's a magic switch that they can just flip one day. I didn't know if it's the magic switch of LeBron coming back after he sat out a couple of weeks, if it's the magic switch of making some trades, if it's the magic switch of the playoffs, if it's what it is. Well, maybe they're playing for the magic switch of as soon as you get rid of this coach that we don't like, then we're going to go with the other guy. And I'll tell you, I totally get the criticism at times of some of the substitution patterns of David Blatt. David Blatt is having a hard time adjusting to certain parts of the NBA game. Those extra 8 minutes make a difference in your rotations. But And there's a lot to be said, by the way, for knowledge of the game. I mean, I truly believe it'll take him a year here of seeing everybody play just to have a better idea of the players in the league. That's one of the disadvantages that comes from playing overseas. But him and his lackings have nothing to do with forcing guys to get out there and make stops on defense. I mean, we talk about it day after day. Beaten drum cracked record over and over again. Defense, none of it being played. And that's where you start to go, come on, man. I mean, you cannot believe that you... And that's where I say LeBron, for all of the stuff that I like or don't like about him, as the alpha male, whether you can tell me it's true or not, he's the man on this team. As for him, the better example he sets, then the more other guys will fall in line. It's the easiest adage in sports or business. When the best player on your team, when the best manager in your sales room, when the best employee that you have falls in line and does what the boss says, nobody else can argue, because all the boss has to do is go, you see that guy over there, number 23? He's the biggest star on this team, and he does everything that I tell him to do. You have no choice. I mean, guys literally have no choice, because you look around and go, oh, man, and it works on the younger guys, too. And not that there's a ton of those left after all the changes on this team. But this is not one of those, woe is the Cavs, that everything is terrible and it's just going to keep getting worse. There is time to fix it, and I truly believe it starts and ends at LeBron for now. Not just to carry the team. I don't mean that. To set the example and get these other guys' heads out of their rear ends. Charles with a great point. If the Cavs do fire Blatt, first off, you have now enabled a group of players to decide when they're going to play and when they're not. And David Griffin has to know that. If you make a change, if you give in, even if you go, I have to because they just won't play, what does that say about your organization? Because now this team has proven that at any time they can decide not to play. They can rip the fans off by not giving their full effort. They can rip the organization off by not giving their full effort. And they'll pick and choose when they show up and play. That's garbage. I don't care what the name on the front or the back of your jersey is. I don't care what sport you play. It's the same as tanking games to get a high draft pick. When you start monkeying around with deciding when we're going to win and when we're going to lose, there's no room for that in any sport whatsoever. So, again, you know, are the inmates running the asylum? And I know David Griffin knows this, and he's going to put this off as long as possible. And a buddy and I were talking last night. My brother and I were talking last night. And I said, and I know some of you don't like David Blatt, so you're going to say I'm crazy. Some of you like him, and you'll say I'm right on point. The thing I worry about is the Cavs are going to run off a good coach before he even gets a chance. There's a reason that everybody that worked with this guy said, hey, man, this guy is legit. This is the one guy that could come over from there and make something happen. I mean, clearly the situation changed after he was hired. But the thing that I worry, not that he'll come back and haunt the Cavs later, I just worry that no matter where he goes elsewhere, instead of giving this guy an opportunity to grow in the job and perhaps turn into that next hot young coach, well, you know, so be it, in the NBA, then you're going to toss him out and start over again, just like we talk about with the Browns, and you're never going to have even found out if this guy was good. And then maybe years later, in hindsight, LeBron looks back and goes, man, well, maybe, you know, but, you know, it's too hard. Where there's smoke, there's fire. You've got agents that have several players, and they also happen to have Mark Jackson under the fold, and that's the guy that everybody's pointing at. Clearly, that's the guy that some of these players want to come and coach this team here. And Terry Pluto made a great point in one of his articles. I think it was in today's paper. I don't know. I read it online. The Cavaliers fully investigated Mark Jackson and made a very clear and conscious decision that they had no interest in talking to him about their head coaching job. So what does that say if that idea changes later? I just believe that, again, it's so easy to say, oh, you're going to throw it all on LeBron's back. I'm not talking about LeBron, go score all the points and make all the plays. Go be LeBron James. Just go do your thing. Go play defense. I'm telling you, if that cat is running up and down the court playing defense for the entire time that he's in there, every player will play better defense. They will have no choice. They will have to. They will up their game or they will get left behind. Again, at the end of the day, you cats are going to, and I don't mean this is the right way to do it, but they're either going to come in and they're going to fit in the puzzle with LeBron, or they're going to find other pieces. Like I said, he's the one that's not going anywhere. Him and Kyrie are not going anywhere, man. Everybody else could come. Yeah, holding the players accountable now. Whoa, exactly, man. Let's not do that. But seriously, guys, again, I want to bring it back to, this is not the same conversation that I want to have 2 weeks from now and 3 weeks from now and a month from now and heading into the playoffs. They have plenty of time to turn this around. And my hope was that perhaps LeBron James stepped away, whatever, physically, mentally, got his head straight and said, all right, you know what? I'm acting like a diva here, man. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to show these guys how to go out here and do what we need to do. Do it because you can, regardless. I don't think he's the best player in the NBA, but he's clearly in the top 5, 6, 7 players. Fine. That's a very exclusive group to be in, no matter how good you think he is. So go do it. And I'm telling you, nobody can argue with that otherwise. You cannot sit there and go, well, I'm not playing defense because, oh, wait, LeBron is playing defense. You can't. But it's easy to go, well, he's not, so I'm not. The NBA is full of he won't, so I won't. He's not, so I'm not. I don't want to. You got to make him. Plain and simple. You hold them accountable or you ship them out and you let them not want to somewhere else. And Bruce is right. West Coast offense style. That's a reason that some of these guys want Mark Jackson, so that they can just run up and down the court and play the kind of basketball that they want to play. The kind where you just score 110 points and hope the other team scores 109. I can't stand it because they've got some good individual defensive athletes. They could do some great things here, but again, it all circles back to that. And David Blatt, man, I mean, LeBron holds him in his hands. Look at him in the huddle. Just look at him in the huddle. Swear to God, everybody else will look at him too. How do you respect a guy who's talking to 13 or 14 players in the huddle and the other one is biting his nails and staring up at the scoreboard, paying absolutely no attention to the huddle? I'm sorry, but if you think that I'm the only one seeing that and the guys 2 feet away aren't seeing that, bro, you're crazy. You're crazy, man. I'll tell you what, that's one of the things that drove Deion. Deion, a lot of people, I'll go into an argument that people don't want to have, but that's one of the things that Deion Waiters had no problem questioning, and then people say he's not a team player. I say he just looked and said, man, I'm just calling a spade, but that's called not being a team player in the 2014-2015 Cavaliers. That being said, I'm wrapping it up with this. It doesn't have to be this way, fellas. There's so much talent on this team that even if they don't win it all, they can win a lot. They can smooth a lot of this over. They could buy David Blatt plenty of time to turn into a great head coach. They can start doing it tonight. You know what? Perfect example. You got Byron Scott over on the other side. Last coach of the Cavaliers. We know about that before Mike Brown. And he's having his own trouble over there with the Lakers. That's a great team to get healthy on. The Lakers are struggling and scuffling. Go take advantage of that. Get a victory tonight. Make it one. Just one. Stop the losing streak. Take care of this one. Go out and take care of it. Then you got a tough one coming tomorrow, man. You really want to just let this thing. You can't let the opportunities to snap it go away. A couple games here, and we're heading into the second half of the season already, guys. So let's see what the Cavs do tonight. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Eddie Jansen from More Than a Fan Cleveland will be here. And again, you guys, I'm trying to be more than fair as we talk about this. I'll talk about the good and the bad and what's fair and what's not fair about the coverage. But do not bury your head in the sand, because that seems to be the popular thing to do, is to just say it's all the media's fault. Everything's going to be great. You guys just need to be patient. No, nothing to see here. Move along. And that's crazy, because there's a lot of things to see here. They're doing it, and they need to go out there and fix it. I keep ending it with the sentence, that's what happens when you throw the parade in October. Hey, you know what? Their buddies over there, by the way, at the Lakeside aren't doing much better. I'm just going to hit the break with this one, get BSK on the phone. But the Browns, whatever, with their coaching search. And I get it. You guys have probably seen all the stuff that came out yesterday. They sent, they did all the media with their renovations of the stadium. I got just a couple of things. I mean, they sent me all of that stuff that, the evening before, and then everybody uses those quotes to make their stories. And I just got a trip out of a couple of the quotes from it again, because it's one of the things that the Browns do. They just, no matter what they do, they step into a puddle no matter what they do. They spent a lot of media time yesterday trumpeting phase 2 of the stadium improvements. The first thing I'm going to say, and I'm not going to say this is not fair, because you got to make money, but all of the phase 2 improvements are all strictly to put cash in the pockets of the Browns. The Phase 2 improvements are all suites and hospitality places and the bigger money as concession stands and figuring out a way how to turn every hot dog stand into Sawyer's hot dog stand, so instead of a $7 hot dog, we can have a $10 hot dog. But point being is, all of the stuff that they added in this Phase 2, it's all money-making stuff. None of these, with the exception of brighter pictures in the hallways and brighter pictures outside, have anything to do with the average fan. Oh, and they'll put some brighter lights in the hallways. All the rest of it is all big revenue stuff for the Browns. That's fine. That's their job. That's their right as the business owners. I'm not even complaining about that. But as they honked their horn yesterday, I looked at all of the renovations and I said, this is all the money stuff. This is all the stuff that you're going to get paid big time back off of to make all of this money back. But that's not what got me. They sent me all of these quotes here yesterday, and it's just perfectly fitting for what the Browns like to do, that two of the quotes really stuck out at me as they were putting themselves over for the first renovations from last year. And they made sure to point out, in an exact quote, they said, as a reminder, none of the renovations, Alex Shiner said this himself, he knows who his boss is, none of these renovations could have been done without Jimmy Haslam fronting the money. They literally went out of their way in a quote to point that out, just in case some people aren't happy with the Browns right now. They want to point out that Jimmy Haslam paid for all of this. But I'm just saying, I thought it was fun. They didn't just put it in a line. Alex Shiner went out of his way to put it in a quote. None of this could have happened without Jimmy Haslam paying for it up front. The city of Cleveland only gave us $30 million spread out over 15 years. I got a kick out of that one. And the other one is they actually took credit for the Browns playing better at home this year to the changes in the stadium last year. A direct quote, they feel a big part of the reason that the Browns played 4-4 and had a much better season at home this year was because of all those improvements they made to the scoreboard and the speakers and moving the seats down. I'm like, okay, now you guys have lost your mind. Like, really? Now you've just lost your mind. We're giving credit to let's not have improved players. Let's not credit a weaker schedule. Let's not credit anything that has to do with the football field. We think a large portion of why we played better at home is because we changed the scoreboards and speakers and put a few more seats down low. Now, that doesn't mean that those changes didn't help, because they did. They absolutely made it louder. Dan Wismar and I talked about that all season long. They definitely made it louder by having the seats down there. But it was so Brownsy for them to put those two quotes in there. They had to point out that Jimmy Haslam fronted the money for this stuff, and they had to point out that they give a lot of credit for the better play at home to the scoreboard and the speakers and stuff that they put in last year. Meanwhile, rumor coming out of Baltimore that if Kubiak bolts for Denver, Shanahan may slide in there as their choice for offensive coordinator. It's not many times that I find myself agreeing with Tony Grossi. Him and I don't always see eye to eye, but he tweeted something right before we went on the air, and it was the same thing I said. Remember, the day after Shanahan left the Browns, I said I wouldn't have done that. And people are like, well, J-Rocc, you have to let him go. He wasn't happy, and the Browns want... Well, no, you don't keep him and force him to be here. But when it's time for him to leave, then you negotiate some kind of compensation. You make sure that the value of your contract is respected. I mean, you know what I mean? That's plain and simple. If I've got a guy for 3 years and you want him, you can have him. But somebody's going to compensate me for making an investment in this guy. Somebody's going to buy him out of his contract. They're going to trade me something. I'm going to get a draft pick, because that's what a lot of teams do, is they'll trade a lower draft pick to get a guy out of his contract or whatever. I just think, it's one thing he's going to go somewhere else, but now he may kick you in the face or kick you down low and go to a division rival. Now, some of you don't like Shanny, and you say that's a good thing. Point being is it was just another cut off your nose to spite your face. I'd have kept that guy dangling and said, we're definitely going to let you go when we're ready, when we get compensation for it, because you are our intellectual property or whatever you want to use as employee until we say so. We got this contract here. He made that point, and I said, dead on. I brought it up on the show, and people say, oh, J-Rocc, you're trying to hold him hostage. It's not being hostage. You're being paid very well. You're under contract, my friend. But, that's all. Why make a division rival better that easy? And that may end up happening. Maybe not, but... we'll see. Nobody expected Kubiak to leave. Now they do. So, and I'm not trying to jump on the Browns there with it. Just those couple things. So Brownsy in everything is going on, and plus it's so Brownsy to send you that press release when everybody's like, what's going on with the Browns? Oh, hey, look, we're working on the stadium. Like, whatever. Anyways, we're going to talk about all this a little bit later, but let's get to the break. Let's get my man, the BSK, on the phone. Let's talk some Buckeyes and some Browns. We'll see if he wants to chime in on the Cavs, whatever. But definitely some OH, baby, IO-style football talk. Let's see what the BSK thought is. He says the Buckeyes beat the brakes off the Ducks in the national title game. Let's talk to the BSK about that. Kendall Lewis joins us next, talking some football and hoops and who knows what. Mike Brandyberry from didthetrytowinlastsnight.com coming up in hour 2 and so much more. Speaking of coming up, Gary Waters, head coach for the Cleveland State men's basketball team. Vikings head coach Gary Waters here tomorrow. Just confirmed that during the first segment of the show. So we'll talk more about that later. But let's talk more with the BSK next. Kendall Lewis joins us coming up next here on the Sports Fix.
Public service announcement from the Sports Fix. We here at the Sports Fix and our affiliates would like to apologize for any disturbing verbal actions, but remember, it's better having them trapped in a box than loose on the streets. Public service announcement from the Sports Fix. The Sports Fix, the sports show that cares.
Sports Fix listeners, you've heard me talking about it. Millionaires being made all season long at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site. I've been playing there too. It's now J-Rocc's favorite one-week fantasy football site. What's one-week fantasy football? That means no season-long commitments. Play whenever you want. Have a player who's hurt? That's no problem at all because you change everything week to week. Injuries don't derail your chance at victory. It's a new season every week. You're never stuck with the same players. You can pick your team in just minutes and be on your way to winning huge cash. This season, one listener turned $10 into $5,000. Another turned $2 into $10,000. And a new millionaire has been crowned nearly every week this season at DraftKings.com. You could be next. Imagine winning $1 million in one day. $1 million just for playing fantasy football at DraftKings.com. Head to DraftKings.com now and use promo code Spreaker to play for free in the $10 million Fantasy Football World Championships. DraftKings.com. Bigger events, bigger winnings, bigger millionaires. Enter Spreaker now at DraftKings.com.
Hey, Sports Fix fans, I'm Fred McLeod, TV voice of the Cavaliers. When I'm not busy taking elbows from my buddy Austin Carr, I'm tuning in to see what the guys are saying.
Come on, Cavs!
Football season is party season at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. Everyone wins at Harry Buffalo. Every Saturday is Coors Light College Football Saturday with $6 pitchers, 4 bottles for $10, and the Buckeyes in full HD. Football season is most definitely party season, and your headquarters is Harry Buffalo North Olmsted all winter long. Harry Buffalo, join the herd. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com. Have you gotten your copy of Cleveland's Finest yet? Highlighting the best moments, players, and media members in Cleveland sports history? In-depth, personal interviews with some of the top names in Cleveland sports fill the pages of this incredible book. Cleveland's Finest by Vince McKee is this year's must-have book for every Cleveland sports fan. Available now at Amazon.com. Get your copy today.
the last 30 years, childhood obesity in America has tripled. Today, 1 in 3 kids is already overweight or obese. This is registered dietitian Melissa Joy Dobbins for the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Good nutrition is key to fighting childhood obesity. These tips can help your child stay healthy. Recruit them to the kitchen. Preparing meals teaches kids about healthy foods like lean proteins, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and low-fat dairy. Make sure to get 60 minutes of physical activity every day. Make it a family activity. And avoid sugary or caffeinated beverages. Give kids water, low-fat milk, and 100% fruit juices. To keep your whole family healthy, see a registered dietitian and visit www.eatright.org. Encouraging you to eat right, I'm registered dietitian Melissa Joy Dobbins with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics.
You're listening to the Sports Fix.
Howdy, partner.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix, live across the Sports Fix Radio Network. J-Rocc, Jerry Myers back with you guys, welcoming you in here, getting ready just a few moments from now, waiting for my man, the BSK, to join us here in just a few minutes. We'll talk a little bit about the Buckeyes and their victory the other day, and the Browns and the Cavs and so much more. Charles, man, you're nuts, man. Listen, man. Get up off my back, okay? Cleveland's Finest is the book to have this year, last year, 2 years ago, 6 years from now, no matter what. Having a chat room conversation with my buddy Charles there. You guys can find that mythical chat room, by the way, on Mixlr, Mixlr.com, Mixlr.com, and they've got a nifty little interactive chat room that some of the fellows like to use here during the show. As well, you can use the phone lines, not right now, because we're going to be joined by the BSK here in a minute. The phone lines, when they're open, 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535, the number to call. You can hit us up on social media all the time. Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at the Sportsfix CLE. Facebook.com/the Sportsfix. Tweet with us at the Sportsfix CLE. And of course, as always, email us, the Sportsfix at AOL.com here a few minutes before Kendall joins us here. Just look. And you know what, too, guys? Going back to what we were talking about in the first segment, I heard from some of you guys here as we came back from the break here. I was sitting there reading a few of the comments that I got coming in. And it's funny because maybe this is what happens when you try to stay in the middle, but, you know, be honest about things, because there's cats that say, I'm not going far enough to the left, or I'm not going far enough to the right. I'm hoping that means that I'm staying in reality, but maybe not. But yeah, man, there's some guys that say, hey, man, you just got to sit back and be patient. Come on, J-Rocc, you know that. And I'm like, I got that part of it. Man, but there's way more than that at play in this whole thing. And then there's other guys that are like, hey, man, you're crazy. You need to go hard. What are you, nuts? This is LeBron doing this and that, or tanking this and doing that, and selfish play. I get some of that too, but I'm trying not to be that guy either, you know. So, but I do find that sometimes that perhaps when I get a lot of those both ways, I go, well, hopefully that means I'm hanging in the middle, man. I don't think I am, man. I don't think I'm like hanging in the middle or trying to hedge bets on this thing. I think I'm just laying it out there like what I'm seeing each and every night. I mean, that's the thing, you guys, is, you know, many of you, I'm not going to say all of you, because obviously we got guys all over the place. Some people watch every single Cavaliers game. Some people, you know, watch them once a week or only get to see them when they're on the national broadcast, or which this year is a lot as well, too, you know. But, you know, along those lines, like when you see them play every day, we're not talking about what so-and-so is reporting or this, that, and the other thing, man. It's what you see with your own two eyes, man. And that's the thing that I keep going back to, man, is on top of everything else like that, man, it's what you see with your own two eyes. So that was kind of what I was trying to illustrate there. And So much time. I use the phrase again because I have to circle it back again. I mean, so much time to write your own narrative, but do not stick your head in the sand and chalk it up to, oh man, people just trying to make problems where there aren't none, because bro, that ain't the case either. Anyways, forget about that. Let's talk about, where else there's no problems? In college football, because the Ohio State Buckeyes, if you didn't remember, I've reminded you a lot this week, national champions, baby, and they, as my man Kendall Lewis is going to join us next, would say, beat the brakes off them Ducks. And they did. They, not just the Ducks, but the Alabama and Wisconsin all the way through. They beat the brakes off the playoff system in unbelievable fashion to win this championship. We're going to pick up there and be joined right now by my man Kendall Lewis, the BSK, joining us here on the hotline today. Kendall, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right, J-Rocc. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, man. I'm feeling good. I'm glad to switch the subject here to the Buckeyes. But, man, tell you what, man, I mean, you were as impressed as anybody else here watching what they did. It's every bit as fun a few days later to talk about and rewatch it and talk some more about how they didn't just win. But, I mean, really, I think that's what surprises people the most is even if you gave the Bucs a chance to win, a lot of people didn't see them being as physically dominant. I thought that down the stretch, they just pounded them. I mean, Florida State wouldn't have stood a chance against this Buckeyes team either. They would have just ran away too. But you saw, again, a team in the fourth quarter that didn't want nothing to do with the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the playoffs, I see a football team that clearly was the best of the four. And this is the narrative I've always said, that Ohio State is by far, in my opinion, taking my Buckeye roots out of it, taking my love for Ohio State out of it. They're the one team that hasn't waned from the country's consciousness in 60 years, period. I mean, they've had little bitty dips here and there, but usually when a team runs out of its core talent, they have to restock. Ohio State doesn't restock. They just reload. And they're All-Americans coming back from 60 years ago down through today at all positions. They've contributed to the NFL. They've done so many things. So the legacy, the tradition, the powerhouse status of the Ohio State football is there for all to see. And I understand why there's hatred across the country, because people are tired of seeing that. I mean, you get tired of the same team dominating each and every year. And while it's only resulted in 8 national titles, there are only a handful of teams who have more. And Ohio State is one of the few programs to have, I believe, I know I'm sure 800, but I think 900 wins as a program. So when you look at that overall excellence, Alabama was gone for, I don't know, half a decade, 10 years. The Oregon. I mean, Oregon is a blip on the screen. They can't play real big boy football because they don't have the depth, the stores, the talent-rich tradition that Ohio State has. Same thing is true of FSU. FSU's tradition, their greatness, started at Ohio Stadium in 1977 when Bobby Bowden brought the Noles in, and they beat Ohio State on a fake field goal, Ruski-type deal, in the last seconds of the game, and that propelled their program. So, no, I never really thought that Ohio State in a playoff situation would not, show the way that they did. Now, you had the matchup of great Alabama. I was somewhat skeptical of how they would perform. But when I saw that Cardale Jones was better than Blake Sims, I felt good about it. Same thing is true of Oregon. When I saw that Cardale Jones, in my opinion, is better than Marcus Mariota, I felt better about it. Once I saw that Ohio State was very well prepared for the pace of Oregon, I felt better about it. And when you see that Florida State was unable to or unprepared or whatever, the football players' IQ for football isn't as high as those Ohio kids, I felt better about the situation. And Jay, that only took one series of downs.
Yeah.
They scored. Yeah, they scored. But Ohio State acquitted themselves well and made Oregon work in the 3 minutes they were on the field. It wasn't like a walkthrough. So I felt better about it. And I felt bad that I doubted Ohio State. I doubted Urban. I felt bad about that because people were texting me, because all season long I said, well, I really don't feel good about Urban's football. That's because I am line them up, run them over type of guy. That's what I like to do in football. But Urban is just a little bit off of that. It's fake and Perry. It gives you the eye look of run around over here and show this and fast pace and all that. But it's really, at its core, line them up and run over them football because they're deep on both lines. They got athletic linebackers who thump. They got opportunistic D-backs. So, yeah, I was very pleased with the final outcome. Beat the brakes off them Ducks.
And I'll tell you what, as you mentioned how it just took one series there with Oregon, it took 2 or 3 with Alabama. I've brought that up, how you saw how quickly the adjustment, because those first scores for Bama and for Oregon were by the book. They did it just the way you said, well, if they're going to do their thing, they're going to come right down and boom, 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 and they did, and you go, wow. But, man, quickly, the Buckeyes adjusted, and in each game, they answered a key question. Like against Alabama, you didn't know, Alabama's used to coming in and being the biggest and the strongest and the fastest on the field. They saw a Buckeyes team on the other side that was, bam, right there with them, and by the end, they were better conditioned and they were running those boys into the ground. Big question with Oregon was, how conditioned are they? And we talked about it last week. Hey, man, they practice against this every day. They're in great shape. They went out there, and by the end of the game, it was Oregon who couldn't keep up with the pace and the physicality that Ohio State was keeping up with. Both games, they answered those questions, and I thought that was equally as impressive. As you said, how quickly they adjusted. Both games, the other team came out, laid it on them, and you thought, is this going to be a long day for the Buckeyes? No, it's not. They very quickly turned that thing around. But size, strength, conditioning, they were the best in all of those categories outside of just football.
Well, if you take the 13 points Ohio State gave away on turnovers, then if you figure that on 3 of those possessions Ohio State scores, then the score of the game is 63-7.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. They get 4 turnovers and you still win like that? I mean.
Yeah, it was a pretty impressive thing. And the funny part is I've been told that this isn't even the good team. The good team is next year and the year after that.
Yes, that's the thing. This was all getting ready for next year and the year after that. These next 2 Buckeyes teams were supposed to just be beasts. Well, they showed up early to the party.
Yeah, and that's a good thing, too. So now I've gotten capitulations from people all over the country who cover college football who hate Ohio State, admitted they hate Ohio State, admitted they have no reason to hate Ohio State, but they have to give it up that Ohio State is the best college football team no matter what they're ranked when you get on the field and play it off. And so I guess that's what this playoff was meant to do.
I'm just curious, you guys that listen, let me know. Hit me up on Facebook or Twitter. I don't watch, so I couldn't tell you. What's Mark May had to say since this thing? Has he found a way to convince everybody that Ohio State accidentally won the championship, or did he just have to come out and eat that crow? Remember how up in arms Mark May was that the Buckeyes shouldn't even have been in the playoffs? And anyways, but I saw a lot of people having some fun with that on social media. You brought up something, Kendall, that I wanted to touch on anyway when you hit on the names Cardale Jones and Mariota and the way they played in those games. Let me ask you, Cardale Jones is a different story, but, Marcus Mariota, and I've been impressed with his college career along the way, and I said, hey, man, this guy, I thought he was definitely a better version of Johnny Manziel than Johnny Manziel is, but not that one game says anything, but perhaps, the style. I said, man, the Buckeyes were so physical, and I know that they're not an NFL team, but there's a lot of that style closer than what Oregon's played most of the way. And not that Mariota played bad, but he didn't come big. He didn't lead his team to I don't even say greatness, but certain quarterbacks do that. But I also saw how much of what he does is a function of the short passes and the screens and the bubbles and different things like that. There wasn't a lot of what he did that I said, man, now that's a man throw there. That's an NFL throw. And I'm not saying he can't, because he's definitely got pro potential. But, man, my thoughts on his potential, not just for the Browns, but for any team in the NFL, definitely took a bit of a shake, because I'm like, man, that's going to be a lot closer to what he faces on a weekly basis in the NFL. And while he was able to have limited success, he wasn't a big play guy, and you saw how they took away that. And I know guys drop passes, but what are your thoughts on him coming out of the game?
Really coming out of the game, my thoughts are the same as going in. I've seen Marcus Mariota, and I would say he's a nice college player. He's a lot like Johnny Manziel to me, only bigger. Here's the thing. He's not a pocket passer, 1. He's not accurate, 2. He's not on time, 3. He doesn't have that gyroscope in his head that tells him, A, when the rush is bearing down, or B, how to throw his receivers open. The little subtleties which make quarterbacks great. Now, he can run you to death, okay, but you can't do that in the NFL. If you don't believe me, ask Robert Griffin. So I think that Marcus Mariota is not the pro prospect that some other players are, because of the system they were, that they grew up in, so to speak, as college football quarterbacks, and because of his natural gifts to be accurate and on time with the football.
Yeah, I saw yesterday, a lot of people still have him right up at the top. I mean, obviously he's going to get drafted high no matter what, but I'm with you, man. I thought not so much as changing my thoughts, just watching him play. I'm watching that. I'm like, man, everything that he's completing for the most part, he had a couple bigger passes, but everything's short. Everything's controlled. Everything, again, it really kind of isolated to me a lot of the stuff. Looking back last year with Manziel, way before he was a Browns player, where he was just Johnny Football coming out of college, man, I said, no way. I said, whoever takes this guy is making a huge mistake, man. And then, of course, it had to be Cleveland. But, I mean, that was way before that. And I had that same feeling watching this. I said, upgraded. And I think you said it, bigger size and stuff, an upgraded version of what Manziel is. It's not saying the kid can't make it, but I think he's got an uphill battle. And I definitely would not use the number 1 pick in the draft on that. But on the other side, Cardale Jones. And there's a lot of talk.
First. Oh, yeah. Before you get into Cardale, let me just say that when we watch ESPN, or we watch the NFL Network, or we watch the draft specials, or Todd McShay or Mel Kiper, just keep in mind that Mel Kiper once said that Dan Marino could never, ever be an NFL quarterback. All right? Keep that in mind. And he's the preeminent draft expert in this country. So if he could look at Dan Marino and say he's not a pro, then what do you think of his skills of trying to figure out, can a guy be a pro player or not? See, here's the thing. Not to talk about any of those experts, but an expert is an expert because he studies, because he's seen. If I see a guy and I look at a guy and I want to know, can he play pro football, I don't need Todd McShay to tell me. I don't need Mel Kiper to tell me. I don't need Kendall Lewis to tell me. I can figure that out on my own, because what I do is, okay, whoever the best football player I've ever seen, the best pocket passer I've seen is probably Dan Marino. So if I'm looking for a pocket passer, my mind goes immediately to Dan Marino. And I compare that player to Marino and see whether he has those stereotypical skills: stature, arm strength, quickness of release, in the pocket, up, back, side to side. I look at that. If he has that, then I'll say he can be that. Or if he's a mobile dual threat quarterback, I think the best dual threat quarterback that I've seen is John Elway. Because with Elway, he could beat you with his arm, or if the play broke down, only then would he run and gain significant yardage. So that if a game was close and you were, within 6 points of the Broncos and he had the ball last, the expectation was that you would lose that game because Elway would get you. Same is true of Joe Montana. Same is true of Steve Young. So my frame of reference of what I'm looking for in a quarterback are in those guys. So when I see a guy for the first time and I'm watching him play and he displays certain characteristics or talents or size, I know exactly what I'm looking for. I know what it looks like when I see it. So I don't have to watch it for 3 years. I don't have to watch it for 4 years. I don't. But now, if a guy has 3 or 4 years of a track record that he's done it, that makes me more sure that he can do it. Now, the intangibles are how hard does he work? What kind of teammate is he? How does he take coaching and instruction? Those are things you can't know sitting at home, in front of your TV or sitting in front of a projector or anything like that. So you can only give your best estimate. But basically it comes off of, have I ever seen a guy with his physical dimensions and with his athletic skills and with his ball playing skills before? Have I ever seen it? If the answer is no, then you have to be on the downside of your optimism for this guy. So when I watch Marcus Mariota, I see a little bit of Joe Montana, his physical abilities. But the question will be whether he can learn to be a traditional pocket passer in the mode of a Elway, a Young, a Marino. Mobile guys who had to suppress their desire to run in order to be better quarterbacks on the NFL mode, on the NFL level. Now, as far as Cardale Jones is concerned, I've seen 3 games. In the first game I saw, I said, well, it looks like to me he's a good pro prospect. That's game 1 against Wisconsin. I saw accuracy. I saw timeliness of the throw. I saw reading of the field. I saw footwork. I saw a lot of the things that you need to see in quarterbacks. Go forward 2 weeks. Sugar Bowl. I saw those same things, and then I saw ability to learn, ability to add to what you know. I think he's a pro prospect. I know he's better than Blake Sims in the mental Rolodex. So finally, the national championship game, well, he certainly can't play as well as he did against Alabama, because against Alabama, he played better than he did against Wisconsin. And against Wisconsin, he looked to me like a middle-round draft choice in 1 game. He plays the Oregon game better than the first 2 combined. Better. Starts off the game in a hole. Doesn't panic. That's poise. Continues to hit throws in tight windows. Continues to throw from the pocket. Continues to look for opportunities to run that are, when the play breaks down, and make a first down, get out of bounds, and don't take the punishment. Continues to show the arm strength. Continues to show the gyroscope. Continues to show the accuracy. The only thing that Cardale Jones does not show of a pro quarterback prospect, an NFL prospect, is throwing a receiver open. In other words, you can see where a guy is open. A guy's right on him. He's closely covered but open. I want to see Cardale Jones throw the ball in such a position where his receiver can get it, but no one else can, and he still has a chance to make the catch. Well, that's the only thing I haven't seen. And if I see that, I would say he's the best quarterback prospect in this draft. Now, and with that being said, if I were any team wanting a quarterback, you can read that Cleveland Browns if you want to. I don't know that I would take him with the 12th pick. Well, I know I wouldn't. And I know I wouldn't take him with the 19th pick. But the next pick the Cleveland Browns have, I would take Cardale Jones off the board. Point blank, period.
I'm with you. I'm telling you, I've talked about him this week. I understand the thought process of he needs to do more, develop more, all of that. But from a business perspective, even if you're taking all the other stuff out, I mean, you can't get much higher than I could see him. We were talking about this earlier this week. Hell, by the time you mentioned those experts that talk on TV, by the time they got done, they talked a Brandon Weeden up to the 22nd pick in the draft somehow. Every year they convince you. They had people thinking Johnny Manziel was a number 1 pick last year. My point is if they get to putting that treatment on Cardale Jones, I could see him easily, as you said, becoming that fast riser up the draft boards where now maybe some desperate teams are debating whether they need to spend that first-round pick. Not that he is a first-round now, put him on the NFL field, but that's how it happens, the fast risers up the board. But I don't think that kid's stock can go anywhere but down from here because there's so much, intrigue and potential. He's got the arm. You got the 4-year contracts with rookies. To me, if I'm a team that needs a quarterback, I'm with you. Second pick if I have to, third if I could get away. You're never getting him to the third round if he comes out. But you take him, and you've got 4 years to develop him and find out if he's Jamarcus Russell or if he's Cam Newton or if he's somewhere in between or if he's greater or what. Man, that's a hell of a talent to develop. I know people are saying it's just a Buckeye fan saying take him. No, that dude's 6'5", 250 with a howitzer cannon, and he runs like a big Cam Newton-style guy. He's worth developing, in my opinion. If somebody thought Johnny Manziel was worth developing, how the hell can you argue that Cardale Jones isn't worth a flyer?
Well, here's the thing. You're talking about those other 2 guys, big guys with all the talent in the world. Yeah. He's a better pro prospect at quarterback than each of them were, than they were put together. He's a better passer than Cam. He's a better passer than Jamarcus. He's not as good a runner as Cam. Cam is the most talented big man runner that I've seen. Only Terrell Pryor is better, and Pryor doesn't compare. But Cardale Jones is a better passer, and that's what it takes to play quarterback in the National Football League. But this is what I'm talking about when I say I'm disappointed that the Browns didn't have a developmental quarterback on your roster. And when I say developmental quarterback, I'm not talking about Connor Shaw. Connor Shaw is 6 feet, 200 pounds with a weak arm. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a developmental prospect is a prospect that has every physical skill. He has some intangible skills. We don't know about Cardale Jones' leadership yet, although I suspect it's there. He has all of that, but there's something else. Sometimes it's character issues. There are no character concerns here. There sometimes can be other extenuating circumstances, and this is one of those extenuating circumstances. He's played 3 games rather. He was in Fort Union to make his grades better so that he could qualify, and so he's been tethered to the bench for 3 years. He's got to. He has a tendency to not be as mentally engaged if he isn't in the mix. So what the tax should be, I'm going to lay it out for you guys. Cleveland should draft him, or anybody should draft him, and we got to keep in mind that when a quarterback, and a quarterback is the most important position because it takes the most intensive kind of coaching and mentoring for that guy to fully and completely blossom if he doesn't have it on his own. But you need the infrastructure, you need the foundation of your franchise, and you need the culture of your franchise. You need the coaching in your franchise. You need the mentoring in your franchise in order to help young players, especially quarterbacks, bloom, blossom, grow, come to fruition the way that you want a quarterback to do. first of all, you have to consider, do you have that? Well, right now, Cleveland's offensive philosophy would have to be changed to fit a Cardale Jones. Cleveland's coaching situation has to come online. So you need to hire a quarterback guru. If they hire Mark Trestman, I don't think he'll be available. But if they hire Mark Trestman, he would be a guy, but he couldn't do anything with Jay Cutler, and there are reasons for that. But you need somebody who has the ability to mentor him in coach him up right. The way the quarterbacks are coached in the NFL by good, competent, experienced quarterback coaches, not a Dow Loggins, not nobody like that. You need a good quarterback coach with a great reputation. The second thing is you stash this kid on the developmental roster, all right, on your practice squad. He's not going to play at all in 2015. It's not even a possibility. It's not even an option. I don't care what happens on the big roster. He's not going to play. He's not going to address game days. He's not going to get anywhere near the field. Period.
No temptation.
He's going to learn how to be an NFL player. He's going to learn how to prepare. He's going to learn the things that a quarterback needs to learn. And to do that, you got to get him a veteran quarterback who is on the roster. It doesn't matter who's the quarterback. It could be Hoyer, it could be Manziel, because they're fodder for when Cardale Jones gets better. And then you're talking about the opportunities off the field. There is a danger of being from the city of Cleveland because of all the tug and the pull and then this and then that. But as far as football is concerned and about the welfare of this football team, Cardale Jones or a guy like Cardale Jones is a player. What I would do if I were Ray Farmer, Ray, if you're listening, here it is for you. I'm going to lay it out. You go and you get Josh, the kid from Tampa Bay, Josh
Freeman or McCall.
Josh Freeman.
Okay.
They're similar. You get Josh Freeman, you put him on the roster to mentor or to teach how to play and be a big guy. Or maybe you go get a Dante Culpepper as a coach, and you have those guys around Cardale Jones so that they can understand what it means to be a pro and a pro quarterback. And then you let him marinate, and in a year you take the wraps off of him and see what you have. And you tell Cardale Jones, now in a year, you're going to have a chance to prove what you've learned. And if you've learned enough, you're going to compete to play on this roster. Is that good? And he's going to say, yeah, and then you're going to go on with the grand experiment. But that's what needs to happen right now.
I hear you. And when you talk about, because the one thing a lot of people that I've talked to mention is being here, being from Cleveland, like you said, the tug of friends, and that's always something that you deal with, but it's more because you're in your hometown instead of being on the other side of the country or something like that. But I think part of that with him gets balanced off, not that it all falls on a guy like Ted Ginn, but having a guy like that, you know, to mentor and be, you know, a bit closer than just on the other side of the country on a text message or whatever, that could, you know, help too as well. I know there's some people saying, hey, J-Rocc and Kendall are crazy, man. They're just Buckeye honks, and this kid's just, hey, look, I get it. He's got a lot to do, but it's just to tie up what you said, if I'm developing somebody, I'd sure as hell rather take my chances developing a cat that's 6'5", 250 with an arm like that and all the potential in the world than waste the next 2 years developing number two like they're getting ready to do right now, because that's just a device guaranteed to end up where we know it's going to end up anyway. So, yeah, I'd much rather follow that plan. And then when you put him on the practice squad, if another team signs him, then you deal with it. You sign him, you put him on the roster, you figure out how to make it work, because that's the only thing you got to worry about stashing him on the practice squad is if another team signs him, then you have to put him on the roster or let him walk. So, but that's fine. You can deal with that, man. And what are the odds that somebody else is going to risk a roster spot on a developmental quarterback? It's not going to happen. So I think I'm with you, but I don't know what happens. We'll know today, because I think by the time this show, most people are listening to it, his announcement will have come out as far as Cardale, whether what he's going to do or not. Let me ask you, outside of the pro prospects, doesn't the great situation that Ohio State's in at quarterback, doesn't that play in if you're Cardale too? Because you got a hell of a quarterback in J.T. Barrett that's coming back. We don't even know what's going to happen with Braxton Miller, but even just there, I mean, I was saying yesterday, if Cardale's choice is go back to Ohio State and quarterback another season as the guy, or go to the pros, well, we got some things to talk about because I could get some great experience. But now it's no guarantee that you even come back and quarterback the Buckeyes next year. And do you want to take the risk of bypassing the NFL to go be the backup? Now, I know, obviously the backups played this year, but that doesn't happen every year. There's no guarantee. So don't you think that plays a part in his thoughts too?
Yeah, I think so. But let me say this first, and then I'll get to that later in just a second. On that point you made about, the Mel Kipers of the world, just because they say it doesn't mean it's so. Trust your eyes. Always trust your eyes. Because just because a guy is a doctor doesn't mean he's a good doctor. Just because a guy is a garbage man doesn't mean he's a good garbage man. So you can be something. You can say you are something. I can say I'm a concert pianist. But guess what? I can't play the piano. So it doesn't mean anything. You trust your eyes, your vision, what you know. And in that way, it'll be easier to, make a decision of what a guy is. Now, on to that point. I think what's important for Cardale Jones is that he plays, period. He can't come back to Ohio State if he isn't playing. And if he doesn't want to go to the pros and he doesn't trust that, he's ready for the pros, I get that. He may be comfortable at Ohio State. He may like Ohio State. He may have a girlfriend, his life, his infrastructure. Everything is in Columbus. I get that, brother. But here's what you got to consider. If you don't like to go to school and he doesn't, then what are you going to do with your life without a college degree? You going to come home and work at Piggly Wiggly? No. You're going to try to play pro football. So your job audition or your application process is the NFL right now. So either you go to the NFL, be a man, and make it work, or you got to transfer to somewhere where you can get on the field right now. And the only place he can transfer to as the rules apply now is the next level down, FCS. So he got to pick a school where he can come in that plays the pro style, that he can show his wares and play. That's the only other thing he can do. He can either stay, play, or transfer. He's not gonna play because Braxton Miller, I don't care what anybody says, is gonna be the quarterback for his final season if he comes back. And then if he doesn't come back, then he's gonna have to beat out J.T. Barrett. Now, him beating out J.T. Barrett is less problematic than him beating out Braxton Miller. I don't think it'll happen. I don't think so. But if it does, then he's in good shape. Then J.T. Barrett leaves. That'll be something that Ohio State will have to figure out. But the most likely scenario, if he comes back, is he'll be in the same position that he was in. And if he's in the same position that he was in, all of this Cardale Jones good nature will dissipate. And you can't have dissipation when you're trying to be an NFL quarterback prospect. So the only logical thing that he and Ted Ginn can get together and figure out is for him to come out. If Ted tells him anything other to do than that, he's being irresponsible to the young man, I think. It's my opinion. So I know Ted, but I think that Teddy is going to tell him just what I've said, that a team is going to have to stash you until you can learn and get ready. So come out. Because if the education is a problem, he can still continue his education. But he's said that he doesn't like school. He doesn't want to be in school. Yeah. He wants to play football. So I think the best thing for him to do is to come out and make himself available for the draft and let the chips fall where they may. Don't worry about any comparisons to DeMarcus Russell or anybody else. Just come out and be who you are. Because all I'm saying and all anybody is saying, he has the look of a professional quarterback. He has the stereotypical skills of a professional football quarterback. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying he's going to be that great. All I'm saying is he looks the way they look in the NFL. that gives you a chance, and that chance should be sufficient for the young man to take a chance on himself.
I'll tell you what, perfect little kind of story out of my own experience to fit into that, and it also shows the risk of the situation, too. When I was going to broadcasting school back, 8 years ago or whatnot, I remember it was a weekend, and it was the initial orientation week. They had guys from other radio stations and big radio shows come in and give you the speech about your future and all this stuff. Well, we had this guy in our class who had this really just a radio voice. He had the pipes, and so this guy heard his voice and said, man, I need to talk to you, kid. Step outside. And it turned out that this show was looking for a sidekick character for one of their radio shows, and they thought, man, this voice is perfect. So within a week, this kid gets pulled out of orientation and hired to one of the major radio stations to go work on a drive time radio show. And some of the kids in the class are upset. They're like, because the kid dropped out of school. I mean, and I would never forget the teacher explaining to everybody, hey, listen, what are you here for? To get a job in radio. So he just got a job in radio. So what is he supposed to do? Stay in school because he didn't earn the job? No, he got what he came to school for. But the backside, the risk, a couple of months later, they dumped his character, and he didn't have the experience and the chops to have anything else to fall back on, so he lost his job and had to come back to school and start all over again. So it does backfire on you, but the example's the same. The teacher said, hey, what's he supposed to do? He came here to get a job. He got a job. It just so happened that he got it differently than the way everybody else gets a job. But mission accomplished either way. Are we supposed to be mad at him because he didn't have to go through 8 months of school like everybody else? No, it just worked out that way, So I thought that would be a similar example there, man. Hey, you know what? We're already talking draft, man. If you want, man, we've got a couple of months here. We can get together once a week and start looking towards the draft and doing some of this stuff. I know you get into watching film and watching guys, and the Browns have a lot of decisions to make here over the next few months. That's for sure.
Excuse me. Excuse me, J-Rocc. Yeah, they do. But it'll be interesting. We can definitely do that. We can work something out and talk draft for the next couple of months. How about that?
Sounds good, man. But you know what? We don't got to worry about it. We talked a lot about the Browns, but let's go back to where we started. The Buckeyes. Did you know they're the national champions, Kendall? Because they are.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Beat the brakes off the Ducks. Kendall, my man, great conversation. Thank you for joining us, and let's do something next week.
All right, Jerry. Take care of yourself.
You got it. My man, the BSK, Kendall Lewis, talking about the Browns quarterback, got him all choked up there, man. I'm like, man, I didn't mean to bring up the Browns draft, man. I got you gagging on it. I don't blame him because I'm over here doing the same thing. So are many of you. Let's kick out of this. Let's take a break. Kendall Lewis, the BSK, tweet with them at the BSK says. Let's take a break, get the news, come on back. Let me find Mike Brandyberry. If he's still around here, I'll try to track him down, talk a little bit of Indians baseball here. And they had a great article. I'm sure some of you guys, I know you have because I've seen some of the comments here this week about the latest article he put together about surprise, the Indians hamstrung financially. I've had some comments come in about it already, but we'll talk about that a little bit. But I'll tell you, what I really want to talk about is a cool little concept I saw out of Milwaukee called the Timeless Ticket. I want to ask Mike if he saw that. Indians draft pick got himself in a little bit of trouble and more. Let's talk some baseball when we come back with Mike Brandyberry from Did the Tribe Win Last Night? Coming up next after the news.
It becomes visibly better because my foundation built a nation of rappers, and after I came off vacation, I came to roam the land to own, stand alone on the microphone.
We here at the Sports Fix want to make all of your dreams come true.
What about my dream?
Edith, I told you I can't build your candy house. It will fall down. The sun will melt the candy. It won't work.
It will if it never rains.
Oh, maybe not all of them. Get your fix on the Sports Fix.
This is head coach Gary Waters at Cleveland State, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Whether it's an oil change or a new set of tires,
Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck has you covered for your automotive car care needs. They're your neighborhood quick service experts. They also offer a low price tire guarantee. Choose from 13 brands, and if you find the same tires at a lower price within 30 days, Quick Lane at Valley Ford will refund the difference. They're open late Monday through Thursday until 9 p.m. and open early Saturday so you can check it off your to-do list and get on with your day. They also have a newly remodeled service lounge and additional service bay just for Quick Lane oil changes. Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck is located at 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 bridge in Valley View, just down the road from Independence. 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 bridge in Valley View, just down the road from Independence. Come see why life is better in the Quick Lane. QuickLane.com/Valley Ford Truck. That's QuickLane.com/Valley Ford Truck.
The Sports Fix is now available every day on the world's largest internet radio service, iHeartRadio. Download the free iHeartRadio app, subscribe to the show, and get your fix.
News break.
I'm Kevin Winter. It gets filed under the who would have thunk this category. Almost at the midway point of the NBA season, the two teams with the best records in their respective conferences, the Atlanta Hawks in the East and the Golden State Warriors in the West. Golden State hammered in Miami last night at 104-89. They've won 15 in a row at home. That ties a franchise record. They're 31-5 on the season. Atlanta steamrolls Boston at 105-91. The Hawks have won 10 straight, 24 of 26. They are 31-8. Perhaps the game of the night was in Portland. The Clippers edged the Blazers 194 despite 37 out of LaMarcus Aldridge. The NFL coaching carousel continues. Jack Del Rio, he goes to Oakland. The Niners promote D-line coach Jim Tomsula to their head coach. Arizona needs to find a new defensive coordinator with Todd Bowles going to the Jets. AZ Central Sports reports Bruce Arians wants to hire former Steelers defensive coordinator Dick LeBeau to a senior position on his staff. Gary Kubiak already said this week he was not leaving Baltimore, but then the Broncos job opens up. And Ed Werder reports Denver has made a request to the Ravens to speak with Kubiak about their job.
Sports Center on ESPN Radio is brought to you by Lowe's, the best place to save big this winter. Hurry in now for great deals to improve your home and garden. Lowe's, never stop improving.
Now, back to the Sports Fix.
Indian fever is catching fire with everyone.
All right, I don't know if it's catching fire this winter, but, you know, somebody's rubbing two sticks together and trying to get some spark. But, hey, we're going to talk about it. We'll pick up the spark because we are, by the way, as we reminded you this week, 4 Monday editions of the Sports Fix away from spring training. That's it. Just 4 of them. I mean, one hand, you can count them down. I mean, even if you're missing a finger, like that guy who climbed the mountain that we were talking about, you still have enough fingers to count how many Monday Sports Fixes are left until we get to spring training. By the way, I did not know. I'm just going to add this now. At 1:26 and 50 seconds here in the afternoon, a few hours before the announcement, I didn't know that the word was out that Cardale Jones was making a life-changing announcement. I just knew he had a press conference scheduled. Mark it down, take it to the bank. That kid's coming pro. He's coming out. You can take it to the bank. And BSK nailed it. Ted Ginn would not be doing that kid a service. If he would be doing him a disservice if he didn't tell him to come out, because there was way more risk in staying in than there was in coming out, especially for a kid that had no interest in going to school to begin with. But we'll talk about it tomorrow. We'll see what he says, but you can just mark it down now. You know, go ahead and make one of those prop bets if you want. And, Cardale's coming out here in a few hours. We'll talk about it tomorrow. We're getting ready to talk some baseball. You talk with us. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. Email us, TheSportsFix@AOL.com. Let's, when we're talking baseball on Thursdays, you know who we're talking to. Mike Brandyberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. My man Mike. Been a minute. Catching up here. Mike, how you doing this afternoon, my friend?
I'm just sitting in amazement that I just waited a half hour so that you guys could talk Browns quarterback when they have 8 months until they play. I'm speechless, Jerry.
Come on, man. I hear you, man. You gotta understand the evolution of that conversation. It was not intended in being a Browns conversation. It was a Buckeyes conversation.
Oh, my God. Cardale Jones in the second round, and it'll be fixed with Josh Freeman and Dante Culpepper. Oh, my. I can't believe I waded through that to talk with you.
I'm good with Freeman and Culpepper. I like Dante Culpepper.
Why not hire Warren Moon too? And
hey, Warren Moon can teach a cat how to play. I'm just saying, man.
Get them all.
Hire 80s quarterbacks. I'd rather just hire Bernie Kosar.
Sure. Dan Marino too. Hire them all.
Hey, I'm with it, man. But regardless, man, we're talking some Buckeyes, man. Hey, what am I supposed to do? Talk about all the money that the Indians are spending here this winter?
That won't take long either.
No,
that won't fill a half hour.
Listen, or I start the open with the Cavs. I mean, tell me where I'm supposed to go, man. I got the feel-good story about the mountain climbing people today, and the Vikings won their basketball game last night. Other than that, you tell me what I got here today, because the Indians aren't doing anything right now. The Browns are doing Brown stuff every day, and the Cavaliers, woe is the Cavaliers. So go ahead. Tell me which direction you want me to go, Mike. Go ahead.
Let's talk Indians in the Central Division. Do we think the Indians have improved, or is the 2015 strategy just waiting for everyone to regress to the mean, and that will suddenly make them the best team?
Well, you know what? Okay, we can go in that direction. Start with the article you guys put together here. Did it come out yesterday or today? I can't remember. But talking about the Triv interview that Shapiro did here this week, man. And, obviously, I think you started it off perfectly with your opening sentence in that it's not like it was earth-shattering news that the Indians dropped on people that they weren't spending any money, but to slap in the face is a good term that you use there, because fans have been sitting here, and especially some fans that thought, okay, Tribe's not going to spend a ton of money, but they're waiting out some teams. They're waiting out some stuff here. They're still going to make a move or two. Well, we're 4 Mondays away from the start of spring training, and that's not a lot of time to do much, because the reality has hit people that there's not much left that the Indians are going to do.
Yeah, some of this is, goes back to, and the story today by Laurel Wilder kind of goes back to some conversations that we had in the fall, and that, basically at the end of the 2014 season, the Indians have about $12 million available with their current roster. When they walked off the field on October 1st or whatever day that was, they have about $12 million available to them, assuming that they have about an $85 million payroll. And the acquisition of Brandon Moss, he's projected to get somewhere in the ballpark of $7 million in arbitration. And let me tell you, the arbitration figures at this point, Jerry, why a player would like fight to go to arbitration is beyond me, because the people who calculate how they calculate it and how they calculate it, I don't know, but I can tell you that their accuracy is amazing. So when they say that you can get $7 million in arbitration, then you're going to get $7 million. And if they say you're going to get one, then you're going to get one. Because it's just the way that it's worked out. And a lot of the guys that, if you read MLB trade rumors, I mean, they hit those numbers spot on. I mean, sometimes, within less than $100,000. So it's their projection that Brandon Moss gets around $7 million. And then the Indians signed Gavin Floyd for $4.5. And, you don't need a calculator to know that 7 plus 4.5 is 11. And if they only had 12 to spend, their team is basically on the field. And I think they've worked to make some moves, but I don't think, they've come to fruition, at least at this point. And I would say a month ago, I thought there was a move coming, and I'm not inclined to believe as much anymore. Like you said, we're really within about a month of the team reporting to spring training at this point. And I think, if you look at the 40-man roster, I think this is what they're going to Goodyear with. And, barring something strange happening, I think this is probably the roster that they're going to opening day with.
And I'll tell you, so sit there, because you and I have talked about that. I remember a month ago or so, maybe before Christmas, Shapiro, they made one of their public relations press conferences or whatever, and talked about how pleased they were that if they had more things to do, but if the roster as it was what they took to camp, they felt good about it and blah, blah, blah. And I remember you saying when we were talking about it, no. And both of us said, hey, that's cool if there's still another thing here to do, if they're going to swap out some pitching or some hitting or something here. But if this is the team, I don't agree with them, and you didn't either, that this team was good to go coming to spring training. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's the occasional Indians fan that tells me, boy, I really like this squad. But I mean, I don't, again, see that much difference making from last season. I see some improvements. There'll be some things better. The defense should be a little bit better. It's hard to be worse than it was last year. But even if you hang your hat on the fact that most of the teams in the division didn't completely improve because they were filling some holes, there was a lot of movement in the division here in this offseason. Everybody saw the window of opportunity that is the wide open Central Division here. And so it's hard to say that the Indians didn't necessarily take a step back. Not saying that they're the last team. They're still right there in the hunt. But as you said, it's more of a waiting for the mean to come back, waiting to see, if you end up at the trade deadline within 4 games and you can make that run. But what much is different from last season?
Yeah, and that's exactly how I feel. I feel like, if the best thing that you can brag about your team is that the 2 teams in front of you may have got worse, I'm not sure what that says about your roster. And I think they're better with the addition of Brandon Moss. I think Gavin Floyd is a complete wild card, so I don't think it's not fair to say that they're any better because of him. I mean, they may be much better because of him in July, but I don't think you can look at them on paper and say, well, this is an improved roster because they signed Gavin Floyd. I think they're better offensively by signing Brandon Moss, but I also don't think that they're better by leaps and bounds. I mean, I think if we look at a crystal ball 6 months from now, I think there's a good chance that you and I are going to be having a conversation about an offense that's up and down and streaky and, is in the middle of the road statistically in the American League, but seems to either score, 2 runs a night or 8 runs a night. And it'll be the same conversation that we had last year. I mean, I don't think that, Brandon Moss moves the needle or fixes their offensive issues. And like you said, they'll be better defensively, but I'm not really sure why. I mean, somebody needs to explain to me why they're better defensively just because Asdrubal Cabrera's not on this team. Nothing else has changed. So they're going to be slightly better defensively, slightly better than the worst defensive team in baseball is not good. And that's the only real area of improvement defensively that I see. I mean, Brandon Moss is not making their defense in the outfield any better. I mean, I guess he's slightly better than Carlos Santana at first base, but I don't think it's their plan to play him very much at first base, maybe on an occasional day off. And he's still a below average defender there when he does play first base. So it's not like they're getting better by leaps and bounds there. They're still below average. I mean, they have a below average defender at every position on the field other than catcher and shortstop right now. And so I don't see where this roster is drastically better. I mean, I think in fairness, I had this conversation with one of our writers. I said they won 85 games a year ago, and we can point to guys that played, below average, below their expectation, and we hope that they'll bounce back, or we think they're capable of bouncing back. But if you truly believe that Jason Kipnis is going to bounce back and you're going to see 2013 Jason Kipnis instead of 2014 Jason Kipnis, you also have to be fair and assume that Corey Kluber's probably not going to win the Cy Young again, or that Michael Brantley might not finish third in the MVP voting. I mean, if you're going to assume that all of your players that have struggled are going to improve, I think it's fair to assume that some of your stars are not going to necessarily all put out the same production. And because of that, I think when you look at the roster, to me, this is still about an 85-win team. We'll be in July talking about if they're buyers or if they're sellers. We'll be waiting for the 10-game win streak, just like we were in 2014. And, Steve Eby is one of our writers, and he has a term that he uses. He calls it pretension. And I feel that is very accurate. And as this roster is currently constructed, I think they are destined for pretension, and that they'll be around it enough to make us believe that they're a winning streak away from really getting into the playoff picture. But I'm not sure. I definitely couldn't pick them to win the Central Division right now, and I certainly could not try to come on here and tell you that I thought that they were anywhere close to a favorite to, contend for the pennant or make a World Series run.
Well, you know what? That's the thing. In that, what you were saying there, you touched on the one phrase that I did not, and this is where, going back to November, end of October, you and I talking, looking ahead to the winter and stuff, we said, man, this will be something we'll see come January or February if the Indians are still standing up on the soapbox and telling you that, they're banking on this. It's a lot like a repeat of last January, banking on this comeback, that comeback, and this comeback. Again, you can bank on some of those. You're going to get some of them. But you touched on what the Indians leave out when they mention that. They are right to bank. You have to hope that you're playing. The statistics tell you that if you got 5 guys underperforming, 2 or 3 of them will probably come back towards their average the next season. But the flip side of that, the old chaos theory, is what people are not going to perform at career levels next year or at the heights that they did the year before, because very rarely, for any team in any sport, do you get the comebacks from the players that are down and then also maintain everybody else who is at their peak level from the season before. So, yeah, you may go, hey, we got an improved. Hey, I'll even curse us here and say Nick Swisher. Hey, we got a decent season out of Nick Swisher, and Michael Bourne came back better this year too. Problem is, Corey Kluber was a little bit less than he was the year before, and as you said, Brantley was a hair off, and we had big problems at third base. Well, you just undid everything that you got out of a better season out of Swisher and Bourne. And Bruce in the chat room with a great point. Forget all the woe is me, Indians don't spend money, we know that, whatever. But talking just about this team, where they are now from last year. I do like, I think the pitching is good. I like the pitching that the Indians have. They came together in the second half of last season. I think they got some good pieces to have another strong bullpen. But offensively, like you said, same weaknesses. One night you're going to score 15 runs. One night you're not going to score. You may be in the negative runs some nights, but seriously, they're going to be hit or miss, feast or famine. You're still missing that one bat. What did we say, Mike, back at the beginning of the offseason? At nothing else, you got to add one stick to this thing that's going to kind of bridge it all together, the top of the lineup and the bottom of the lineup, and be that power source. They never got that, unless they say it's Moss. They never really got that, and there's still questions at third base whether you think the first half Chisenhall or the second half Chisenhall is what you're going to get, and then where do you go there too? So just as many questions, if not more, to me in January than there were in October.
Yeah, I completely agree, and if you dig out the archives, I think, at some point in October, you and I talked, and I said, I would be surprised if we got to spring training and Lonnie Chisenhall, Trevor Bauer, and as a stretch, maybe Carlos Santana, if those 3 were all still on the roster. And I'm pretty sure that I said I'd be disappointed, and they all still are here, and I'm still disappointed. And it's nothing personal against any of them. I'm happy to have 2 out of 3, but I guess I perceive those three as guys
trade chips.
Could all, our trade chips have value to other teams and are guys that, can probably shake up this roster and maybe make some improvements, defensively or offensively. And they're all still here. And I mean, I'll be the first to admit, in terms of excitement level for this upcoming season, I mean, I have a hard time getting really excited about this Indians season at this point. And I don't need 20 moves and I don't need $100 million spent to get me excited. And that doesn't take away my fandom either, but the same roster in 2014 is now the roster in 2015, and to me, the guys that have underachieved because they're getting old are just getting older, and the rest of this core, their weaknesses are still there, and you feel solid about the starting rotation. I'm not sure that I even feel solid about the rotation. I think as a whole, it's a solid group, but I also, it also was a group that carried them in the second half. I'm not sure that another one that we could go back and dig out of the archives is, I'm not going to believe the Carlos Carrasco, magic until I see it in 2015 and until I see it for a while.
Yes,
and I would say, in fairness, I mean, I think we would all agree that Trevor Bauer and Danny Salazar still have development to make if they're going to be the pitchers that we think or that the Indians hope that they'll be. And to me, Gavin Floyd is a gigantic wild card. I mean, I think it's a good wild card to take. Don't get me wrong, but you'll never convince me in January that he's going to go out and win 13 games and, that Kluber's going to go out and give you a solid effort, and that if those other guys struggle, that, we can for sure count on Gavin Floyd every fifth day to give you a solid start. I mean, his injury history just tells you that, you're pretty foolish to count on that. So to me, he's a gigantic wild card. I hope that comes through. At this point, based on the limited moves that they've made, I think, Gavin Floyd and Nick Swisher are probably the two guys who may potentially, really control the Indians' fate for 2015. Because if you get the effort from guys that you think you're going to get, those are two areas where you could get a substantial improvement from last year to this year.
Yeah, I hear you, man. And you know what? Let me throw this in there because I'm still. You guys know me, Team of Destiny, all that stuff, and this is Mike and I talking.
We'll be able to do that again too.
Oh,
I
mean,
we can do that the whole second half of the year. Pretend like they're
going.
That goes along with pretension. I mean, we'll be able. We can do the same bits and everything over that we did in 2014. It'll be great. We'll just.
But seriously, okay.
I keep referring to the archives. We're gonna have to tell people to not listen to last year's archives.
All the snark that we're saying, and this is looking at paper, and this is just the reality of what the Indians have done in this offseason heading into this season. Now listen, that doesn't mean this is sports. This isn't done on paper. These cats could go out here on the field and they could be a hell of a team. We could be looking at a good season. They could play well together. That determines itself. We'll watch that. We're not sitting here going, hey, just close up the shop now. Don't even buy your tickets, man. This season's in the bank, because if you won on paper, then there'd be a lot of different champions in sports history than the way it plays out. We're just simply looking at the realities of the roster as it's constructed. Very well, things can change. Because I feel bad, because I feel like we're sitting here going, turn out the lights, just close the Jake now, man. We're not even going to bother having this season, because of course that's why they play the game. But this is where they are right here. As of now, they're a team with a lot of question marks. That's the fun part of it, is they can go out there and shut all of us up and answer their own questions and say, hey, man, the Indians were right. But, I mean, you're catching lightning in a bottle if you're expecting that to happen, just being real.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I agree with everything you just said. I'm not telling you to turn out the lights either. This is a team that did win 85 games last year. I think, if your glass half full, they were 3 games from a wild card spot, and believe me, you're going to hear all year, hey, if you get in, look what Kansas City did from the wild card spot. Go ahead and and see if you can get $1 for every time you hear that, because you'll be rich by the end of the year. But the truth is, they were 3 games from a playoff spot, and the reality also is that if your glass half empty, they were 4 games from being 500 and just and pure mediocrity, and I think anymore with 5 teams making the playoffs, I mean, it's a very fine line between, are you a playoff contender or are you just an average baseball team? And I mean, to be honest, I think the Indians dance that line right now, right in between. And if a lot of guys have quality years, I think they have every chance to win 90 to 92 games, and this team could win the division. Absolutely. I think if things go wrong, this team also has the potential to, maybe win 76 games and finish 4th, or if, depending on if, I mean, God forbid, if there was an injury to, Corey Kluber or Michael Brantley or Jan Gomes, or, my God, a combination of, I mean, it could go south farther. I mean, this team, and I think that's part of, trying to contend in this market and on this budget. But, it's tied together very tightly, but every thread matters. And, you pluck one and it's going to open up a big hole.
For sure. It's a butterfly effect, man. While we've been talking, by the way, hey, Tribe, don't say they're not making moves. Anthony Swarzak going to come to spring training. Let's weaken the competition in the division, taking a Minnesota Twins. No, he's a decent reliever. He's, a matter of fact, second most in baseball in innings pitched since, in relief innings pitched, I should say, since 2012. So he's an arm that'll get you some miles, doesn't give up a lot of home runs. It's another piece there in that bullpen. It's actually a decent. It's not going to make anybody happy, but he may be a decent arm.
He's definitely a contender for this year's Scott Atchison Award.
There you go. Exactly right.
Guy who comes off of the spring invitee list and makes a 25-man roster, and
he's got a good shot at it.
Definitely has a shot at it for sure.
I don't know if he's injured or not. I haven't had a chance to look at it. I'm sure the Indians signed him, so he must have had Tommy John somewhere. But if he didn't, I'm excited.
I think everybody's had Tommy John now.
You have to have Tommy John to play for the Indians. That's part of the qualifications. Hey, how you doing? So when was your Tommy John surgery? Oh man, you didn't have it yet? I don't know if we're interested, man.
They just schedule you. If you haven't had it when you sign, they just scheduled.
Well, you know what? That's starting to be a thing in sports in general. You hear about that, like people doing steroids, kids talking about, hey, let's just cut the thing up now and get it over with because it's going to happen anyway, and they come back stronger. So, that's actually a thing. People have an intentional Tommy John surgery, man, to preventative Tommy John surgery is what it's called. Hey, real quick, let's get off the bad parts of the off season here. Something cool that I was texting you, and I said, hey, we got to mention this. I said, have you seen this too? I was looking through some baseball stuff over the weekend. Came across the promotion that the Brewers are doing, the Timeless Ticket, which I thought was a pretty cool concept, man. It's definitely, you said off the air, you said, hey, I'd buy a couple. I would too, man. Basically, the concept is it's a lifetime ticket for a franchise's games. No team in baseball had tried this before. I think it's been done maybe in a few other sports from time to time, but basically it's a $1,000 ticket that you buy. It's a bronze ticket, and it gives you unlimited entrance to any game. I believe the only qualification that the Brewers put on it is that opening day games are the only games that cannot get you in. Although the initial 1,000,
I thought it was. I thought you could.
Well, that's what it is. They sold a second batch.
Part of what they guaranteed was any day, including playoffs, World Series, or opening day.
they have to be careful because they walk that line. Initially, they did offer that. So there was a batch of 1,000 tickets that they put out called the initial run. Those are any game. Opening day, World Series, you name it, they can get you in. It gives you one ticket to any single game, although the team did come right out and say, if it's Game 7 of the World Series and it's sold out, there's no guarantee that we can get you in. But with rare exceptions, you can get into any game. Now, they've added some more, and on those, they actually tweaked, I believe, they took opening day off of that because it was they wanted to limit it. But the initial run of 1,000, it's any game. Opening day to the Game 7 of the World Series, a $1,000 investment. I mean, clearly that's the kind of thing you could pass down to your kids or whatnot. I thought it was a really, really intriguing concept, man, definitely. And it creates not just something people can pass down, but a lifetime fan, somebody that gets used to going. I mean, that creates there's a lot of cool things that can come out of that. What do you think?
Yeah, I heard about it yesterday, and if the secret ears of the Indians are listening, you can mark me down for 2 of those original 1,000 if they want to put them on sale right now. I'll hang up with you, and I will call in, put them on my credit card, and I'll give you an idea of just how fast I think they would sell and what a good idea it is because when I heard of it, I was like, man, that's really unique. And, whenever I hear something that's, different or new for the first time, I always kind of like try to think, I think it's the teacher in me. I've had enough teenagers try to, take advantage of a system one way or another. I think, so I always try to like take a step back and like, what is the hidden advantage? What is the hidden disadvantage? And I was like, $1,000, is it worth $1,000? And what would I use it for? And, I hate to say this, but I would never use it on anything other than a World Series, ticket. So I would be buying it knowing I'm sitting on it till the Indians are in the World Series, and most likely sitting on it until I thought there was a chance that they would win it, so that I could be there live. And so I thought about it, and I thought, how much money, when you start to think about how much money I've spent in my life related to the Indians and my family has spent, and I thought $1,000 really doesn't start to sound like that much. And I thought, I wonder if they ever did this. And here's when I always know if it's a good idea or not. So in my crazy fan-driven mind, I've talked myself into one. But I'm thinking in my mind, really at this point, I'm married, I'd have to buy 2. My wife is a very very big Indians fan too, and I think you don't even get a choice when you're married to me. You wouldn't be married to me if you weren't an Indians fan. So I always test the waters when things like this come up, and I said to her, I said, so guess what I heard today? So I laid out how it worked, and I said, if the Indians ever offered that, and she goes, oh yeah, we'd buy 2, before I could even ask the question. So if the Indians are listening, they got 2 sold already, 2 in the bank, $9.98 to go, because I think that is an amazing idea, and I think it's cool how it would be used. I mean, I think of some of the great games that I've been able to see live, and then some of the games that I could have gone to, and for one reason or another didn't. That had I had a timeless ticket, maybe I would have considered cashing in. I mean, I'll tell you, one of my regrets is that I didn't go to the All-Star game when it was here in '97. It was the year I graduated high school, and my parents asked me if I wanted to go, and if I would have said yes, I mean, we would have gone. We would have found a way. And to be honest, I was a 18-year-old who, still loved the Indians, but I loved chasing girls, and I loved summertime a little bit more than committing to going to the All-Star game, and I wanted to hang out with my buddies before going to college, and I said no. And I can tell you I'm going to the All-Star game this year in Cincinnati, and I'm excited for it. But, that's one of those that, maybe if I had a timeless ticket sitting there, maybe that's something that I would have cashed in at that point. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, that's it. You get one shot at it, man. You get to pick your shot. When am I going to cash this thing in? But not only do you think of, if you're looking at it from a fan aspect, as you were, from a business aspect, as in, even like the Brewers were just using the article that I saw talking about opening day, and the average opening day ticket can be around $100 for opening day for the Brewers. So, do inflation over the next few years, and then multiply that by the back end of the season. If you end up in a World Series, what those tickets could be worth. But the other cool thing too is that you don't have to go solo. If you have the timeless ticket and you cash it in, a cool little caveat. Obviously you have to pay face value for them, but you can purchase 3 companion tickets next to yours at face value. So you can take up to 4 people with your ticket, but you obviously have to buy those additional 3 tickets at face value. But, that comes in handy as well with that too. But there's, as an investment, as a thing, just as a nifty thing, it's easy to say, hey, spend $1,000 on this thing or whatever. But I thought it was a cool concept. I thought it was a little bit different. It's Charles in the chat room said like the Willy Wonka, like the golden ticket. But really, think about it, man. If you were in that position to be able to do that, what would you pay for a World Series Game 7 or even Game 1 or whatever? Because that may end up being a good value down the road. You mentioned All-Star games too. I looked several different articles. I could not find anything about the All-Star game. It said World Series games, it said opening day, it said all of the regular season games. Does the rotating All-Star games count? I'm wondering if that's not considered a home game. I don't know if you'd be able to use it for that.
Well, I'm telling the Indians I want it on the list. Just in case. If we're negotiating hypotheticals, that's what I want. To toss the All-Star game on there. I don't care if it happens at Progressive Field. If they have another hockey game and I decide I want to turn my ticket in, I should get in. Or snow days or anything that goes on at the ballpark. If I want to turn my ticket in, they got to let me in. That should be the rule. Once I think it's a great idea. You were talking about cost. I'll give you one. In 2007, I remember this so vividly. I had season tickets at the time. I have very good seats. Good, not great. I sat in section 170 for a good part of the 2000s, and I was 8 rows off the field were my seats for probably about 5 years. And in 2007, we had those seats, and the face value on our World Series tickets, one ticket, was $525 per seat per game. So $1,000 to get you in, I don't think that's that crazy. I don't know what a World Series ticket costs these days because I haven't had to put a down payment on one in quite some time. Yeah, but I'm sure they're not cheaper than that. So again, $1,000, I don't think it's as much as it sounds.
Mike Brandyberry from DidTheTryWinLastNight.com. We're talking a little bit about the timeless ticket, and the Indians always look. You know what, though? Not just baseball. This is the beginning of a new era of just like, people thought the PSL was unheard of at the time that it was invented, and all of that season tickets, whoever the crazy cat was that came up with that 100 years ago. Lifetime season tickets is the next place to go. It's the next money-making way to evolutionize the way teams can lock in costs. They'll be extremely expensive because they're lifetime, but there will be people that'll buy them. I could totally see NFL teams getting into the concept of, paying, $2,500 or something for a lifetime ticket, and it, because they don't have to include the Super Bowl in that. That's a different game. We'll let you go to a wild card game or a divisional game with it, but you're never going to get the big. But value. I could totally see the lifetime season ticket evolving into the next kind of evolution of these kind of gimmicks with ticket sales.
Yeah, I agree. And, we've talked about it, several times before. It's tough in any sport. We talk about Indians and attendance at times, but it's tough in nearly any sport anymore to get people to the game. It's not the way that it used to be. As interactive as our world has become, there are a lot of people who value watching the game at home on the cushion of their couch on their big screen TVs that are in HD, and playing on their computer and talking on Twitter with other people that are watching the same game, and the discussion of the game is as much as anything. And so creating new ways or new economies to get people to the game, I definitely agree with you. Buying a lifetime season ticket, I can definitely see on the horizon. I always think of our era and how things would be different in other eras. And
look at
that's kind of part of the premise of the 48 replay. But the other day, last weekend was the anniversary of the drive on, I forget which day, Saturday or Sunday, and I was thinking, Twitter melts down most Sundays during a Browns game. I can't imagine what Browns Twitter would have looked like as John Elway walked down the field to tie the game and then to win it in overtime. It's just a different era, and in that time, being there had so much more value. And now I think we're so interactive. You're there in other ways, even if you're not in the stadium, and you can interact with so many people. The lifetime ticket, is a way to pull people in.
Agreed. And again, think about it. Like, obviously, there's things that a franchise would have to work out as far as you are fixing early costs, and then you're not going to reap them down the road. So you couldn't sell 40,000 lifetime tickets or you'd go out of business. But you set a certain number aside and you sell them, and then, not only... you've got cost and balance and all of that, but you also have, in the future, in years that it may get lean, you've got some guaranteed butts in the seats and some concessions and some groups coming. It plays into everything else that you're doing. It seems like a natural evolution there, man. I don't know. We got a lot of time to talk about a lot of this stuff here. We're getting closer. Next week, there'll be a couple of 3 weeks till spring training. One of the guys, I just wanted to, we need to go crazy about this or anything, but did you hear about Justice Sheffield over the weekend?
I did.
Yeah, Indians draft pick, got himself in a whole mess of trouble. I don't know what he's done, what he hasn't done, but he's been arrested on burglary charges, apparently accused of breaking into somebody's house, had to do with a girl. Seems like definitely the kind of stuff that at that age you end up getting yourself into. But either way, the nephew of Gary Sheffield, he was his first round pick for the Indians this past year, wasn't he? I believe
he was.
Player of the year last year too.
He was actually, I believe, would be like the pick at the end of the first round would have been
sandwich pick, right?
Compensation, for Ubaldo, actually.
There you go.
But he was their second first round pick. I believe he was like 31st overall. Give me a +1 either direction, and I think I hit it there. But I think he was 31st. What's
31st,
that?
I just found it. Yeah, and he got a $1.6 million signing bonus, by the way, to go along with being the 31st pick in the draft. But yeah, he's been released on a $5,500 bond. A lot of people high on his potential, but not often that you hear. You will say that, man. Indians do. We talk a lot about guys on other teams that are always in the news for bad things. Indians don't seem to have a lot of that in their system, but here's one that's definitely a name that caught you. I saw that the other day. I said, man, what you doing, Justice Sheffield? But, he's young, 18. He's not somebody that's in the Indians' plans anytime in the near future, but still something I thought we should mention here.
Yeah, you're right. He's young, and I definitely wasn't there. I definitely don't know all the details of what happened that evening, but, allegedly he went to, someone's house to confront them, over a girl. And I think we often forget that, athletes are people, and he's a 19-year-old. And I hate to say this because I sound like I'm downplaying it, and I'm not. But 18, 19, 20-year-olds, we were all 18, 19, or 20 once, and if you're older and you look back on those years, you didn't always make the wisest decisions. And this certainly probably is not one of his wisest. And it, to me, is always, how do you react from that? Is this the beginning of a long trend, or is this a blip on the radar? Yeah. And not to make light of it or to make maybe an unfair parallel, but I think that's why Johnny Manziel is wearing people thin quickly, is because any of his transgressions can be wiped away as not that big of a deal if it's just once. But right. If it continues over and over, you can't be young forever. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how he handles this, especially, from a professional standpoint and from an Indians development standpoint. When they take pitchers young and high in the draft, they normally move very slowly. So I would expect him to spend most of this year at their Arizona camp already, and probably not leave Goodyear. And if he did, it might be near the end of the season for a couple starts at Mahoning Valley. And I'll be interested to see, how he handles that, because he's still a professional. It's still a job. Just because he's not on an affiliated team and maybe not logging statistics doesn't mean that he doesn't, go to Indians Complex every day and put in a workout and put in effort. And let's see how he handles the rest of his free time around his job. And if this is a blip on the radar, unfortunately, there's probably too many of us that have, blips with the law at one time or another. If this is his only one, he'll get through that as a professional. If it's the first of many, it may be, we may not know about, Justice Sheffield with the Indians ever. He may just be a name that gets added to a list of, draft flameouts.
Yeah, you do something once or twice, it's a youthful transgression and a mistake. You do it over and over, like number 2, it's a conspiracy. When they run that list off in court, those are called extenuating sentencing circumstances at that point. Man, all of a sudden, you know what I mean? The judge is looking at your sentence a little bit differently.
It's as simple as being, are you young and dumb, or are you just dumb?
Just dumb. It doesn't matter what age you are.
And time will tell.
Absolutely. Mike Brandyberry, great talk as always. Let's do it again next week, and we'll see if the Indians give us anything to talk about here. Hey, you never know. They may sign another. There's a lot of Tommy John guys. No, I'm just kidding out there. But there is still some time. We'll see if they tweak this roster anymore. And either way, we'll only be 3 weeks away from spring training next week, which means even if it's 0 outside, it'll still be warming up a bit in our hearts, Mike.
It will be. We'll be 3 weeks away, and maybe next week we can talk about parts of the roster or something, because I think for the most part, I hate to say this, but if there are no changes, I really think that most of their roster is pretty much settled before they ever head to Goodyear, as long as guys stay healthy. So we'll see.
Let's start doing it. Next week, my man Mike Brandyberry, and of course, you guys doing your thing on didthetribewinlastnight.com. Anything cooking this week?
We're just like you guys. We're getting closer and closer to spring training and starting to talk a little bit more, like we did today about the finances, but also the players on the field. And this is a busy time for us as we start to get out and talk to some of our people and collect some quotes that we use for a lot of our spring training coverage. So we're starting to ramp up like everybody else.
All right, follow it, bookmark it, didthetribewinlastnight.com, and check out Mike every Thursday here on the Sports Fix. Mike, have a great weekend, a great week. We'll catch up next week, my friend.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Thanks for being here as always. And you know what? We started this conversation coming off of the Cardale Jones talk with the BSK. Let me talk to you guys. Breaking news live coming at you now. Of course, I've said throughout the show my thoughts that it was a no-brainer. Cardale Jones comes out in the NFL draft here this year, but I just got an email during that last segment a little bit ago here from Dan Wismar, my man here, with the latest updates on this, and you can put it in the bank. If you weren't sure before, you can put this thing in the bank. But as I pull up my email here, the latest just a little bit ago, Cardale Jones has made the decision to go pro. He's told his agents, he's told Urban Meyer. Obviously, there's a 4 p.m., which was initially a 3 p.m. press conference. It's now been pushed off until 4. According to Dan here, Urban Meyer and Ted Ginn Sr. have asked Cardale Jones to give him 1 hour prior to the press conference to talk to him. That would explain perhaps the switch from 3 o'clock till 4 o'clock. Thoughts are, and then this is good speculation here, you would think that if they're asking him to give them time before the deal, then perhaps they may be advising him one way or the other whether he should stay or go. It kind of seems to make sense that they'd be convincing him to stay rather than, hey, give us an hour right before your press conference. We'll find out. Obviously, Ted Ginn is an influential guy here in this. Although, as Dan points out, not so much in the past year. Urban Meyer as well, it's in his best interest to keep as many good quarterbacks as he can. But as of now, it appears a foregone conclusion unless somebody talks him down from the ledge that Cardale Jones is announcing here, or perhaps by the time you listen to this, he will be coming out. But you've heard it here earlier in the show and confirming it now. Cardale Jones, unless anything changes, has decided to come out and join the NFL draft here this coming spring. We'll talk more about that here. Obviously, tomorrow we'll know for sure. We'll have Jonathan Knight, the sports writer extraordinaire, in the house. We'll talk to him. As I said, Eddie Jan. Well, I'll preview tomorrow's show here in the next segment, but we'll definitely talk about this decision here and what comes next. But it's a done deal unless something changes. Cardale Jones is going to get paid. I mean, hey, he's looking at a guaranteed $1 million plus. And I'm just telling you, I live here, man. I'm not just talking about the dangerous streets of Cleveland, as they so disrespectfully said the other day on the broadcast. I can't believe it. They said it twice. Dangerous streets of Cleveland. I mean, really? Like, I could see the hard streets of Cleveland, the tough streets of Cleveland, dangerous streets of Cleveland. I mean, I get it. Danger lurks around every corner, but I don't know. I don't exactly walk around in fear, but hey, what do you know, man? I'm from here. Maybe I'm used to the danger. Anyways, but coming from the tough, hey, man, coming from the EC, man, it's a lot that's a lot to ask that kid to walk away from guaranteed money like that. And again, it's not like he was going to school to play school. He was going to play football. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Let's take a break. When we come back, CSU Vikings, they won last night. Coach Gary Waters is going to be on the show tomorrow to talk about it. We'll hit you with that. Preview the Cavs game. I'm going to open up the phones one last time, 216-539-7535. Final segment of the Sports Fix coming your way next. But once again, breaking news. It's official. Barring a change, Cardale Jones announcing his opting into the NFL draft, perhaps here less than 2 hours from now. We'll be right back. Final segment of the Sports Fix coming your way next.
To resist it, 'cause I'm curious to know if the disco floor is the only place that you can twist it. So do it for me, baby. Let me see you shake.
There's something kind of about a kid that's never played baseball.
Throwing you the best sports commentary in town. The Sports Fix.
Guys, want to take just a second as we head into this break and remind you about the official business printing source of the Sports Fix, our friends at Signs and Ship. Signs and Ship, I'm telling you, Chris and Pam, they've taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here in Elyria, Ohio that I work with, or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business is the lifeblood of the community. So check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Looking to upgrade your league trophy? Check out fantasyjocks.com for championship belts, rings, trophies, and more. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's fantasy sports superstore, fantasyjocks.com. SportsFix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
Hey, everybody. Listen up.
Listen up, guys.
Hey, guys. Listen up. No one should ever hit a woman.
Not their wife, not their girlfriend, not their date. No woman should have to fear violence.
Especially not from someone they know and trust.
But that's the reality for too many women.
We have to change it. It's up to each of us, because even one is too many.
Violence against women hurts all of us. Growing up, I was ashamed and afraid of my father when he abused my mom.
The worst abuse of power is when a man raises his hand to hurt a woman. We all have to take responsibility. So if you see someone threatening a woman, step up, speak out, and get help.
Dating violence hurts all of us. So step up and help end it. Because one is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
End the violence. Because it's wrong.
Because one is too many.
Hey, Cleveland, this is Tristan Thompson of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and you're listening to Sports Fix.
This is how we do it. This is how we do it. La 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 la. La la la. This is how we do it. La la la. This is how we do it.
That's right. That's how we do it. Welcome back. Final segment of the Sports Fix live across the Sports Fix Radio Network. J-Rocc back with you guys once again. Hey, if you're just tuning in, as we said in the previous segment, take it to the bank. Cardale Jones getting ready to announce, unless they talk him off the ledge in the hour before the press conference, perhaps by the time you hear this, Cardale Jones will have confirmed he's coming out. He's going to the NFL. Hearing it from Dan Wismar, hearing it from several other people in the break. Cardale Jones, unless he is talked off the ledge, coming out into the draft. And I'll tell you what, saw a very interesting statistic here. I mean, for all of us that talk about the risks and the rewards that come with this kid. And I mean, this is really close to unprecedented. I mean, end of the day, 6'5", 250, whatever, you're still talking about 3 games. Now, BSK had a good point earlier. 3 years, not just 3 games. It's not like he just walked onto the campus and played 3 games. He has been there playing and practicing. He hasn't obviously been starting games, but it's not like he came in off the turnip truck and started 3 games and he's still figuring out which end of the pigskin is which. But history definitely against a guy like Cardale Jones. If he does, as we expect here, enter the NFL draft, there's only been one quarterback in the past 10 years even drafted with fewer starts. Matt Castle back in 2005. Remember, he had never started a game for USC. That's the only person in NFL history that would have been drafted at any round in the draft that started less games than Cardale Jones. Some of the other ones, which are names that you may know or may not know, the other 4 on the list, quarterbacks that have been drafted with fewer or with that number of starts at the Division I or Division II level. Next up would be Adrian McPherson from Florida State. Yeah, I know who. From Florida State back in 2005. He started 4 games, didn't go to the pros, ended up in the Arena League for 1 year, washed out of football. DJ Shockley from Georgia had 12 starts before he was drafted. Matt Flynn, 13 starts for LSU before he was drafted in 2008. And Cam Newton, a guy who a lot of people project out similar to Cardale Jones in just physical and maturation issues as well, too, because that's what I see in Cardale Jones as being one of the biggest things you got to worry about. I mean, obviously, you've got intellectual, and I don't mean that in any kind of a bad, I mean, football intellect and all of that. He was able to handle that offense enough, so it showed me a little something. But while there's questions about that, he is a ginormous kid. You know, we jokingly said he's the football version of Greg Oden, but he's a ginormous kid at heart. And I mean young kid, little kid in a giant old man's body, man, because you listen to him talk, and I'm telling you, it's not very different than sitting there and listening to my 16-year-old son talk. You know, I mean, still very young. So I could definitely see maturation issues. Now, I don't know that means the kind of stuff you're getting from Johnny Manziel or other guys. You know what I mean? I don't know what, maturity is maturity. You either have it or you don't. You can't buy it. You can't learn it. It comes with time and experience. But he's really young, and he is a big kid at heart. So I could definitely see maturity issues. You'd clearly have to develop him, but the skill set is there. Cam Newton had 14 starts, of course, before he came out, although he did have a year at junior college, which is a bit different of the equation as well. But that kind of ties into having multiple years. But those were starts, at least, at a JC and not sitting on the bench. So all of that, part of that equation there for Cardale Jones and his decision. And again, we'll be talking about that tomorrow right here on the Sports Fix. Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire, will join us. Jeff Gorman's going to be here tomorrow talking some football. We'll get his thoughts on perhaps Cardale, but we'll look at the preview of the championship games this weekend. AFC and NFC slots in the Super Bowl will be decided. Jeff Gorman with the preview on that tomorrow. You know, while I'm talking about Cardale Jones and his stuff earlier, we were talking about Mariota with BSK and a bit. I got to tell you, for all the questions that I have about where he translates in the NFL, the one place that we didn't even mention earlier that makes sense is, of course, Philly, because that's the one place where they took that offense and moved it. Now, I do believe that last season showed the NFL's catching up to Chip Kelly in that offense. It took less than 2 seasons. I truly do believe that that's the next gimmick thing. Now, I'm not saying that increasing the pace of the game isn't going to stick, because that's going to stick. You see the Patriots, you see a lot of teams employing that, 15 seconds or less. I mean, the backside of that is, run a play every 15 seconds, you're punting every 60 if you're not getting it right. And at the NFL, that'll hurt you really quick to sustain a bunch of 1 and 2 minute drives and a bunch of quick punts. I think we saw the brakes fall off a little bit. I'm not the big Chip Kelly guy. I never thought when he was in the Browns discussion that offense was going to translate long-term to the NFL. I thought it would be gimmicky. I thought it would be short-term success. And just like everything else, it comes back to the mean as the league catches up to it. The good aspects of it will stay. The bad will go, and you'll continue to evolve that into the next whatever that comes along, the next evolution of football or offense or whatever. But guess what? The one system that Mariota looks good in is clearly the Oregon system. It played to his strengths, and it propped him up. So why not go play it for the coach that taught it to you and it set it all up together there? I mean, that would kind of seem to be a no-brainer kind of a pick. Clearly, Philly would have to trade way up. I mean, they're 20 in the draft. Even if I say Mariota's not the number one pick, he's going somewhere up there in the top couple of picks. So, but, hey, it is what it is. But, I mean, that may be a place where I still don't know what he succeeds in, because if they're catching up to that offense, that means he's kind of limited in what he can do. But at least it gives him an early chance for success. But I think I don't know. But again, some of you don't agree with me about Chip Kelly's offense. I do. Look at the end of last season. I totally believe that you began to see that. I mean, I get the concepts, and there are some things that'll stick with that. But I was never big on that gimmicky system to begin with. I do believe that the good teams will begin, have already, not begin, they've already started catching up to that thing. As like I said about Manziel coming out of college, you can begin to see the trend towards the end. It's all you can see it moving back towards the middle. Same thing there. But hey, man, keep that in mind. If Chip Kelly can go up and get him, then that could be a perfect fit for him in that offense there. And then that opens up some situations, because obviously they've got some other quarterbacks in the mix. Mark Sanchez, Nick Foles. Those are names that Browns fans have come back at me with in the last week or two. So, if the Eagles go get Mariota, then what do you think? I don't know. We'll talk about that. I'm not talking anymore about Browns quarterbacks today, man. I don't want Mike Brandyberry to come back and beat me up anyway, but we'll talk some more about it soon. As I said, tomorrow, a lot of football talk. We'll talk Cardale. We'll talk NFL. Jonathan Knight's here. Eddie Jansen's here, from More Than a Fan Cleveland, talking some Cavaliers. They're back in action tonight. Cavs getting at it with the Lakers. LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, of course, the names that everybody focuses on. But there's a hell of a lot more at play here for the Cavs. You're facing a team. This is, like I said earlier in the show, get you healthy right here. You got the Clippers coming up. It's not going to get any easier, that's for sure. So a chance for the Cavs. They had a game together the other day. Let's see next game back out here, how they go out here and play. They need to snap this losing streak that they're on. Cavaliers have currently lost 6 in a row, 1-9 in their last 10, and worse than that, if it could get worse than that, the fact that defensive efficiency in those 10 games, as I mentioned yesterday, Cavaliers third worst in the NBA, only the Knicks and the 76ers worse than them. That is nowhere near right that I just said that. Forget everything else. That alone, that is the most stupid statistic you can say, man. Cavaliers, by the way, yesterday, the games over the weekend pushed the Cavaliers' season averages for the first time. They've not only dipped below 500 at 19-20, but they have now dipped below the, I guess you'd say, the Mendoza line as far as points against and points for. They were scoring more points than they were giving up for the season. The last couple of games, this losing streak, they now average giving up 100 points a game and scoring 99. So for the first time this season, that average has flipped itself over to where they're now, on average, giving up more points per game than they're scoring. That's it, plain and simple. They would prefer to win every game 110-109. Speaking of, that's the way the Lakers play. So the Cavs may like it tonight. They may not have to play defense. Lakers score 100 points a game, give up 107. They're very poor defensively. They've lost 2 in a row. They've lost 7 of their last 10 coming into this one. So definitely a place for the Cavs to go out here and get healthy. When LeBron and Kobe Bryant here get at it with each other, LeBron plays pretty well. He's averaged 29 points a game since 2006. LeBron's teams have won 12 of 15 against the Lakers and Kobe Bryant since 2006. Kobe, meanwhile, averages 25 points a game. However, he's only notched 1 victory as a starter here in the last few seasons while LeBron was with Miami. So that's different. That's Miami, as we know. That ain't the Cavaliers. That's the Heat. But LeBron, Kyrie, Kevin Love, let's see if they can get right and get healthy tonight. This one, a bit more of the late night variety. This one's a 10:30 tip-off instead of Sacramento was only a 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. 10:30 tonight, late night Cavs hoops. Back-to-backers here. in L.A. with the Lakers and the Clippers. We'll talk about this tomorrow with Eddie Jansen from More Than a Fan Cleveland, see if the Cavs righted the ship a bit. And speaking of hoops, let's end it with a winning note, which means we're not talking about the Cavs. We're talking about the Vikings. Cleveland State, 55-50 victory yesterday. Andre Yates, with about 59 seconds to go, hit a three-pointer. Trey Lewis as well helped nail it down the stretch with an and one. Wright State held on tight, but Cleveland State able to get the victory. 55-50. Vikings improved to 10-9 overall. Yes, they are the only basketball team in Cleveland currently playing above 500. They're 4-1 in the Horizon League. Meanwhile, Wright State fell to 10-8 overall, 2-2 in the Horizon, as these teams neck and neck in the league there so far this season. Anton Grady, 16-10, a double-double. Second one in Horizon League play for him. He also had a couple of assists in that one. Marlon Mason, 14 and 4 rebounds. Trey Lewis had 13 points, 7 boards, 3 assists. Charlie Lee had 6 assists, and DeMonte Flanagan had 6 points coming off the bench. Coach Gary Waters, proud of his team last night, said both teams played hard, deserved to win. Great win for us, but still a long way to go. We've been teaching this every day in practice, how we executed down the stretch, and it was great to see them tonight. Don't take my word for it. Tomorrow, Coach Waters will be live right here on the show, and we'll talk to him about it. 12:15 tomorrow, kicking off the show. Coach Gary Waters, Coach Waters Way on Twitter, and it'll be Coach Waters Way here on The Fix. Vikings with the victory last night. I see Charles in the chat room. Blue Jackets fell to the Montreal Canadiens last night. They're now 18-20-2 overall. Monsters one more night off tonight before they've got a tough 3-3 coming up this weekend. We talked to Doug Plagans about it yesterday. We'll preview it a little bit tomorrow, but they've got 3 big road ones here wrapping up the 5-game road trip coming up this weekend. Man, a lot to get into tomorrow, you guys, and we're going to do it. As I said, running it down one more time, we've got Jonathan Knight, the sports writer extraordinaire, in the house tomorrow. Coach Gary Waters, the head coach of the CSU Vikings men's basketball team. Jeff Gorman from Browns101.com previewing the AFC and NFC title games, and Eddie Jansen from More Than a Fan Cleveland in hour 2, talking some Cavaliers in between the Lakers and the Clippers out in L.A. We'll talk about all of that, do the Sports Fix thing, your takes, and more. You know when and you know why. Same bad time, same bad channel, live at noon, right here across the Sports Fix Radio Network. You guys have a great night tonight. If you're staying up, enjoy some late night Cavs hoops and enjoy coming back. You better come back tomorrow or I'm going to find you. I don't care if I wait, that's take a lot of time, but I'll hunt every one of you, thousands around the world. I'll find you all, or you can just be here tomorrow at noon like we do every Friday. Let's do the Sports Fix thing. We love you, Cleveland and beyond. Have a great night tonight. Don't make me come looking for you tomorrow, live at noon here on the Sports Fix.
This the home of King James. We are not the empire, but this is where the kings play.
Cleveland, we rep our city. Blue lights separate the ground from the gritty. Red sick fitted, hood pass cover any city that we visit. Winnie up on Cleveland. Survivals on my Palm Beach streets. We hustle, don't sleep. Out here in Cleveland, Cleveland, Cleveland.
Okay, now here we go. Welcome to the Cleveland Show.